There we go. My mute button was off the bottom of the screen. Oh, well. You don't need to hear me anyway.
Everybody wants to hear you, Mark.
What was that? I was at a TSP meeting a while back, I don't know, several years ago, and got my life membership, which means I don't have to pay dues anymore. And somebody asked me, what was the life membership for? And I said, how do you get that? And I said, you got to be old.
Right. I'm grandfathered in on certifications that exist no longer.
Yeah.
It's like you're lifetime certified to this. Okay, that is interesting. How many people we have on board right now is new to security? Or just starting out in their careers?
Oh, just new to security. No, that's not me. 50 years at it.
Yeah, I'm going to say that you're a pro at this point.
Yeah. Did you want our ISC squared number in chat or what?
Yeah, I'll get that, but I'll make an announcement on that in the second hour. That'll give everybody time to get their stuff together and just throw it in.
Just shut up and let you run the meeting.
No, you do it. Mark, I need you to talk as much as possible. I'm not trying to run this. Tiffany is running this show. I'm just here.
Nope, just hosting the infrastructure.
That's all right. You're the hostess.
Everybody's begging off, huh?
It's quite a few people joining. This is really nice. So we have Dante says he's new to security. Anyone else? Only you, Dante. Oh no. Well, that's good.
I'm new. I just started in the SOC, the position.
All righty. So for all my new folks, ISC Square is offering a new certification for our folks that are new to the game in terms of cybersecurity.
Hey, JP, tell Austin 4 years is not new. You're a senior. You about to be retired in a couple more years.
Do I count as new?
All right. So what's going on today? Real quick, we have two presentations. The first one is given by my friend Chris Jordan, and it's from the company Fluency Security. So we'll get to see that in a few minutes. Also, later on, we will have our second presentation from a company by the name of Cynomi. And what Cynomi does is basically set up a company's infrastructure in terms of governance and risk. Oh, good. People are still coming in. It's good to see. Anyway, does anybody have any news or anything they need from a cleanup aspect? I'm hoping that this was a good way to get information out to people through LinkedIn and allow folks to see everybody, because I realized over the last couple of months that it was hard for people to get down to downtown Dallas. So I wanted to make sure that we had an infrastructure that made it easy for folks to sit in their house or sit in their office and join us and get your CPEs. Anybody else that needs other CPEs because you're going short, I mentioned Chris Jordan, and one of the things that Chris has is a podcast by the name of Beers and Bites, in which case he brings in other industry leaders. They sit back and throw down some brews while they talk about issues in cybersecurity. For those who can see Steve sitting at the top of their screen, give a wave to everybody, Steve. Not you, Tiff. You're not Steve, but anyway.
I thought you were going to tell us to wave at him.
Oh, well, you can wave at him if you feel that need. But anyway, Steve works with Cynomi. Also, Steve was in the background for a VCSO talk or fireside chat that we did earlier this month. Also, what I'm going to do, I set that up on What Grinds My Gears on that YouTube page. So everyone could get an opportunity to see it if you didn't see it live. And I will paste that into the chat so you can take that. That's only going to be one CPE for you on that. But if you look at most of Chris's actual beers and bites, they're going about an hour. They vary depending on how good the topic is. How many people right now do we have that are actually members of ISC Square? It's not a requirement to be a part of this chapter. What we're trying to do is grow people and be better technicians within security. Okay, because what's going to happen as we go further on, I'm going to make sure that I get the ISC Square numbers for those who need it. I believe I have yours somewhere marked, but I'll get it anyway just to keep track. Chris, are you ready to rock and roll, my friend?
I think I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, so
Guess it's time.
what this presentation is, and Kiki, I think you may like this.
Okay.
Because
Roll
this
this.
may actually speak directly to you in terms of what it is you do right now. Chris Jordan, Fluency Security, take it away.
Yo, my friend. All right. So Fluency Security is a SIM, a Security Information Event Manager. And we're a SaaS-oriented SIM, which means we're a product in the cloud and we deliver it as a SaaS product. So there's no database administrator on your side. To tell you the truth, we don't even do certifications. We're not like Splunk where you have to actually figure out how to do indexing, because we do all the indexing completely. So our focus really, and one reason why we're talking today is our focus is how do you go into an infrastructure and make it more secure using a SIM? So let me bring up PowerPoint. I don't normally like PowerPoint, but I think it will keep me on track, okay? So now share screen. Hey, can I share, buddy? JP?
If you let him share.
It's telling me the host needs to give me permission.
Yeah, I'm not the host.
Oh. There we go. All right.
There we go. Tiffany got it.
So we'll bypass the chart about who we are. It's like everybody else. Every security vendor is going to give you a list of credentials of what they're doing and who they are. One thing that we do differently is we analyze data kind of like how Snort analyzes data. If you guys have ever heard of Snort, I kind of dated myself, but in the IPS IDS world, we don't store data in a database, we examine it at the line itself. And Fluency is in the same way. Even though we store everything in a database, all our models and all our analysis are done in real time. So in our industry, we have this thing called the 1-10-60 rule: 1 minute to detection, 10 minutes to acknowledge, 60 minutes to remediate. That's the objective for what a corporation needs to do when they're dealing with audit data. For our mean time to detection, it's 0. Why? Because all our rules are done in real time. Now, that changes one aspect of it, but you still have to be secure. So this is a really good on-ramp to people new at security, that just because a company is SOC 2 certified like we are, doesn't mean the product I give you is SOC 2 certified. So it's very important to understand that when a SIM company comes to you, one of the first questions you can probably ask them is, what's your data retention? All right, and this is kind of a trick question. So, hey, JP, take yourself off mute. I'm gonna throw you under the bus right now. JP, what is the government standard? Who determines the government standard for how long data has to be retained?
It's usually either NSA or NIST, depending on which side of the agency, or DOD, depending on which agency you have to deal with.
See,
but 9 times out of 10, it'll be NIST dealing with NSA.
So that's the common answer people will give you. Neither NIST, the DOD, or NSA can determine how long you keep anything. There's a government agency called the Government Archives, and they're the only ones who can tell you how long you can maintain a record. So if you read the NIST 853, you'll notice they never talk about how long you're supposed to do data retention. And that's because by law, only the Government Archives can tell you to do that. It's the one requirement that doesn't exist in 853. Okay? So in that, by law, criminal activity is 7 years. Most logs should be kept for 1 year. See, I knew I'd throw you under the bus on that one, JP.
That's all right. You got me good on that one.
Trick question.
And so
My answer to everything is usually NIST.
NIST is it. And tell you the truth, NIST has literally everything to include the NSAs and the FIPS. The only thing it doesn't have is the IL 4s, 5s, and 6s out of the DoD. But NIST is basically it. Now, data retention is the one thing that you really need to make sure you take a look at when you do a SIM. Because by law, like I said, not just by law, but by PCI DSS standards, that's supposed to be 1 year maintained and 90 years or 90 days searchable. And then the biggest one out there is New York Part 500, Department of Financial Services Part 500, which requires you to maintain it for 3 years. So one of the things that we do when we take a look at a SIM, when you're going to evaluate it, you want to say is how long do you maintain it? That is one of the ones that certified companies actually don't give you the secure answer. Like I said, so you go take a look at Splunk, you'll take a look at CyberClamp, you'll take a look at CrowdStrike, SentinelOne. Those people maintain it between 7 days to 90 days. So it's very important to understand your data retention is your primo requirement when you take a look at a SIM. The next one is data separation. That's not a big one for most people, but we keep everything in its only S3 bucket by customer. That's one thing you want to check with your MSSP provider is your data separated? Now, most of your customers and your companies will be in the United States, but let's say you have a company in Germany. Okay, by law, the data really can't leave Germany. So your data location is also important. So again, you're going to a SaaS service, they're storing in the cloud, data location is pretty important. Some clouds like Google Cloud actually don't have a presence in the EU for storing data, last time I checked. So you got to watch out for that. GovCloud only is East and West. So if you have a client in Germany, you're kind of actually not allowed to store it in GovCloud because you're storing it outside of Germany. So those are the big retention ones. And the other ones, I brought up the 110/60 rule, is something that's a corporate kind of thing. And these aren't requirements on the right-hand side, but they're good to know, which is that durability versus availability. Okay, so anything in the cloud is going to give you 4 nines of availability. Only way to bump it up to 5 is by storing it locally and then do a store and forward into the cloud. The problem with that is you need to make sure you have a backup stored and forward on your location, or now you're back to pretty much 4 nines again, because the odds of you being down are also go into the equation. Now, durability is an interesting one. So in order to increase speed, most SaaS products use S3 or EBS buckets. EBS buckets are very fast because most databases are slow. Remember, we try to avoid the database. So when the data gets stored in EBS, it actually is scarily can only be 3 nines of availability, between 2 and 3. So by storing in S3 buckets, you get 11 nines of durability. And now what's the difference between availability and durability? Availability means I can get the data to the disk. Durability means once it's on the disk, what's the chance of me actually having the data destroyed, losing it without me intending to lose it? So durability is kind of important. Okay, and in fact, almost all the durability is 11.9, for the exception of EBS and AWS. Strangely to be said, most SIM vendors use that EBS bucket. All right, now we can get away from requirements and start. Let's talk about why we're using a SIM. And so one of the things is this is a common model. So we brought the NSA. So the NSA is on the left-hand side. The NSA gets a lot of data and they try to find the gold nugget. And the CIA is on the right-hand side. They start with a gold nugget and they try to figure out everybody related to it. So when you're doing this for a company, the left-hand side is SOC operations. That's where I get my alerts. And so all the data comes in and my alert should be that gold nugget. The better that gold nugget, obviously, the better I am. Once I confirm that that nugget's bad, I do a thing called threat hunting and expand it out. I say, what is associated with this so I can remediate the problem? So on the left-hand side, that is my alerting. And again, you want to stay away from the database because it slows you down. On the right-hand side, you have to use the database because that's my historical knowledge. And so I'm going to be searching the database in order to threat hunt, to do my analytics, to find everything associated with it. And so those are your two main functions in a SIM. And the reason why most SIMs fail is they don't understand that there's a difference when I'm searching for the gold nugget versus searching for threat hunting. They try to make everything the same thing, and it's not. So one section is, I need to find out what's wrong. And the other section is, I need to determine when it's wrong, if it's wrong, right? That's part of threat hunting, and what's associated with it. Okay, the faster I can do that second piece, the faster I can remediate it. Remember now, I get an alert, I have to acknowledge it. I've literally only got 60 minutes to close it. So I'm kind of going fast here, and then I'm a fast speaker. We might get to the Cynomi before we get to like 2:30 if I keep going. So when we engage people, we like to engage people. We want to say, well, you're going to talk to a CISO. You're going to, in fact, some of you are going to be CISOs or virtual CISOs, and you're going in there, and they're going to say to you, I need policies and procedures, right? Now, here's the twist. If you're going in from day one to develop an organization and they don't have anything, you start with the requirements and you build it up. That's what the government does all the time. And so a lot of people who are used to governance from the government, they'll tell you policies and procedures are the first thing you want to do. But the problem is you don't even know what the network is. You don't know your assets. You don't know what's already out there. So from a commercial industry, the best practice is actually to take an inventory of what you have, right? Do I have IDSs, IPSs? Do I have my firewalls? Do I have endpoint, right? Then I have to figure out what my data sources are. And from those data sources, I move to the second piece. I say, what are my assets? Now, the assets can be confusing to people because most of the time when we think assets like Forescout, we think about machines. But really our assets are three different things. They're the actual devices themselves, the people, right, and the services. And you would think that people would be the easy one, but to tell you the truth, people can be confusing. You have 1099s, you have contractors, you have people on the other side of the services. And so these three things really are the basis for establishing what objects get controlled. Now, the other twist, the reason why we want to do that kind of after we take inventory of things is the vulnerability assessment. So some people like to do the vulnerability assessment first, but without knowing where all your assets are, you can't scan them. You can't put agents to get the configurations, right? So by the end of 90 days, in a 30, 60, 90, you should have a list of your vulnerabilities, your assets, and your basic collection grid. Okay, and if you go back to NIST and you take a look at like NIST AU2, AU3, you're going to see that it's mostly focused on the data collection and making sure I have complete vision, right? So we're getting the AU pieces done, but then finally the last thing that NIST talks about and a lot of modern day analysis talks about is continuous monitoring. In fact, your SOC 2 versus your SOC 1 differences is continuous monitoring. SOC 2 type 1, I should say, is a snapshot. This day and time, we were this secure. SOC 2 type 2 looks over a period of time normally between 3 months to 12 months and says, what did that company do during that time period, right? And they're evaluating all the requirements on a day-by-day basis, saying this was the overall trend and these were the flaws about them implementing, right? And normally a SOC 2 gets done annually for usually 9 months. So you do it manually for 9 months. You kind of take 3 months off to square things away from the findings, and then you start up again. So that's how the industry kind of works and does their certifications. But we want to get to continuous monitoring. That is the objective of every company, is to be able to figure out all their assets, take inventory of everything, monitor everything, and then report on a monthly basis what's the status of your company, right? And we can go over deployment and stuff. The key here is I can keep on clicking, but the point is that even from our perspective, we put processes for everything. This slide I put in here just to show you that even when we do onboarding, we have an engagement process. So it's very important that all your processes are documented and you understand when they get done. I could take it. I guess everybody can post stuff and JP, you can tell me when people kind of chime in. Now, I'm going to switch over to interface because like most old school techies, we just like to see demos. We hate slides, okay? And so I'm starting on one piece here, but I'll back you out. But the reason why I wanted to start here is this is our event watch. And if you ever take a look at what I'm showing you, these are basically rules that are being loaded. In fact, these are the Sigma rule sets that we loaded in here. But I can take a look at some of the older rules that we have that are still very valid, and to tell you the truth, don't even exist in the Sigma. And these are like our SSH rules, our TCP rules. And so these are rules that have to do with how a network should behave. And if you ever seen a snort rule before, you're going to see that I have variables in my rule, right? So my rules aren't hard coded. My variables in our product are actually in another table, which lets me maintain lists. And that's where I put my variables. So the key here is that this is the knowledge base by what I'm looking for. So I am looking for these things. I'll just bring them back all back up again. And that's kind of key. So remember before we had this chart and said, I'm like the NSA, I'm having all this data come in and I need to figure out where to start. That's exactly how every operation should work. If you talk to an analyst and you say what your job is, he says, you know what? I log to this dashboard and I interpret these charts and I look for a spike. And then I'll drill down on a spike that I see. Or you might talk to another person who says, you know, I look for everybody who's coming into my organization from outside the United States. And I take a look at those alerts first, right? Those ways they're doing it, they're looking at an anomaly, but they don't have a consistent process. And process is king in the business world. If you plan to be a business leader, you really need to give processes to your people. And so the way we begin processes is by incorporating intelligence into rules. Now, this has been the standard since the 1980s, ever since Dorothy Denning came up with the idea of IPS, or really IDS, that the idea is you incorporate knowledge into a rule set, and then you search your audit logs with that rule set. And we can do this from everything from, these are event watch rules that are looking at data coming in, but I can actually do event watch rules for configuration files. So if I was to pull up, let's say, a configuration file for us, you can see here that the system's already highlighting and saying, hey, I've got a system infected here. I have a system infected here. I have a machine that needs a patch. Okay. Now, where's this data coming from? Okay, this data is an API call to SentinelOne. So we like EDRs, which stands for endpoint detection and response. And so agents are placed upon all the devices in the network, and we listen to those agents, and we both listen to their configuration data and what they're talking about, their streaming data. And so by tying those back together, we can get a list of not only just what alerts are coming through, like something got infected, something got quarantined, but we can also see status of machines to include, I need a patch, okay? So I'm going through it quickly. So we have all this knowledge and these rules get hit. And so in our world, when a rule gets hit, it generates an event. And this event generates a ticket. So you can see there's a status. So that's the next thing you're going to do in a SOC. So you need to be able to have a situation where once something becomes a starting point, that you track that starting point to closure. What we like to say is if you can't measure it, there is no purpose for it, right? In other words, if I can't come up with a starting point and then create metrics to say, how long does it take me to acknowledge to close it, then it's nothing I can do about it. It's not a process I can take care of. Now, one thing here on ours is you can see that we have a key, and this key says a username, it says an asset. Notice I'm not looking at IP addresses. So that's another thing that's really changed in our industry. And it's good right now to take a step back and realize I'm really not talking about IP addresses. Even though my data does have IP addresses in it, I'm not. And this is a change in our industry that occurred about 3 years ago, that we moved to a thing called user entity behavioral analytics. And what that means is that if I see an IP address, that IP address can change all the time. So I don't want it changing. So I want a device or a SIM or structure to follow the person, to follow the device. right? Because historically, as things change, the IP address can change, but the device shouldn't be changing, right? The person of who they are isn't changing. So I can maintain historical trend over something. So let's go through and take a look at, I could take a look at me. Why don't I take a look at me and why I didn't close this morning? And so we had somebody that we had to remove from Office 365 and the system flagged it. It said, I did something I normally don't do. And it's true, I normally don't delete people from Office 365. I said I updated a user, right? And this user myself logged on to Azure. And I can actually click and drill down. And these are these events. So these names here, if I click this, you'll see it brings me to that event watch, right? So it's all tied back together to be able to say that piece of knowledge I was looking for triggered, right? That's the key behind SIMs. SIMs are all about defining what you're looking for and having it triggered. And so this one here, uncommon operation, is interesting. This is a behavioral hit. So our system, even though it's looking at things streaming, it's actually a machine learning system. And it said, you know what? Chris normally doesn't do this. And it tagged me, rightfully so. And if I drill down, it says, what did I do? It says, I set a mailbox permission and I updated a user, this particular user. And as I drill down, the update is to delete the user, right? It also says I logged in. Now, this is an interesting twist. So if you take a look at what I logged in, I logged in from MCI from Great Falls. That's exactly where I am. The system knows I'm from Great Falls because it didn't tag and say new location, okay? Now, if I go up here, I see that's not my IP address when I deleted the person. So why is that? And by the way, it doesn't say delete, by the way, it just says I archived the person. That's how Microsoft does it, disable. But why aren't the two the same? First of all, this long IP address, if you're used to this is colon notation of IPv6. And you know it's colon notation because I have 2 colons in a row. That, and it's a little bit shorter than I normally see. The fact that the back of it doesn't look like an IPv6 knows that this is not a translation. This is a pure IPv6 in the cloud, right? Most of IP6 is in the cloud. Big metropolitans, Dallas, probably one of them. Your local IP address might be an IPv6, okay? IPv6's GeoIP address is not very good, but the owner of that IPv6 is good. So if I grab that owner, and I think I already checked it over here, yep, you can see that that owner is Microsoft. So what happened was when I'm in the browser and I switched to do these things, Microsoft server is talking to another Microsoft server, and that's who's making the conversation and who's actually doing the actions, right? So this shows me that this particular action in this was done by a web user because the IPv6 is from Microsoft. If that address was a non-Microsoft address, it most likely means it's being done through a PowerShell user, right? Those you kind of want to flag. And the reason is because most admins don't do PowerShell movements on Office 365 in the cloud, right? That's more of something they do locally. So anyways, so that's good. I know what this is. And so at this time, I can go ahead, close it, and just go ahead and recognize the fact, just saying I was deleting the user, post it, and closing my ticket, okay? And this process that you see me doing is a process that occurs over and over again in the SOC. The ticket opens up, I investigate that ticket, and I close it. Now, me looking at this extra data is that opposite side, right? Here's this golden nugget, and then all of a sudden I'm expanding it. And what I could have done, let's go look at another alert. Here we have Howard, and Howard is drilling down, and he is also logging in. And that IP address space is from Maryland, University of Maryland, which shares Greenbelt, Maryland. So that's our office. And he's on a Linux device, right? And if I keep on taking a look at the other stuff, you can drill down. This is his Office 365, and this is his G Suites. I think that's an interesting combination that we can also see his G Suites and Office 365 all being tied back to Howard. Okay. And I could drill down and say, show me all the things that Howard is doing. Right. I can say, there's that login we were just talking about. I can drill down and say, go to the database and show me his login activity. Now this starts getting pretty detailed, but this is the part that we talked about. We want to grow it out. So we might want to say, hey, he's on a Linux box, right? Is that the only box he's on? And see, now it comes back and it's according to the device properties, Linux, Firefox, one of them is called false, and then his SID number. So these are properties that are associated with that particular variable. And this allows me to expand it. I could then go back and say, he's on Linux. Is anybody else on Linux? So I grab that. I can go back. Let's see if I have Howard as a user. I add the user to it. Okay. This is his SID number. If you guys know Office 365, I have Linux, and I'll just show you what a pivot looks like. I'm just looking at Linux now. There you go. And now I have the two Linux users in my office, both Quinn and Howard. Okay. So that's what pivoting is. So I could have grabbed, let's say, an MD5 or a SHA-256 and said, where's that file? And then shown what agents are and pivot it. And so this is the investigation aspect of an analyst. Now, you as a manager, you get to tell people to do this. You actually don't have to know how to do this. And more importantly, if you turn to an MSSP, they do this work for you. And I say this because you should never be intimidated by the amount of investigation the work is analyzing an issue, right? Because in our industry, it's very segmented. And the analysts are on one side, they analyze it, your admins are on another, okay? And so that data, with that separation of duty, even separation of objects, I can go over here and I can actually flip between organizations in our interface. So I can go from mine to a different companies that we help support. Our MSSPs have their own interfaces where they can drop down and manipulate, okay? Trying to think what else. Okay, last thing, but not last but not least is reporting. So we do have tons of different reports. Everything that is an object on our side, that every bucket can generate its own data. So I could go back and go through, I haven't even checked this before, Office 365 usage, and it will go back and pull data up that's related to the Office 365 usage, okay? And that's, then the customer turns out and says, I want to schedule these events. And then you can see there are schedulings, billing, and a test one on this particular system. This is a test site. So I never know what I'm going to find when I go to this one. But let's go back here and go back to AWS billing, because it said that it was good to look at billing. And there you go. So now you can see the billing of all the systems. What's interesting about this, and we often use this, we talk about this particular one, and I might say, hey, I want a pie chart on one of these. I'll just show you. The data really is behind the scenes. All these charts are built off real-time data. They're down to the second. And what's happening is I'm polling AWS for my EC2 and EBS. And by doing that, I can determine my usage and what my bill is going to look like even before I get my bill. And it's kind of interesting because AWS, if you're a normal AWS user, you actually don't know what your bill is till it shows up. But we actually know what our bill is on a minute-by-minute basis because we're running audit against it, and we do a calculation based upon the audit. So I think that's it, Jeremy. I could keep on going talking about SIMs, but from our perspective, like I said, our focus really is, I mean, I can show you events and all this stuff and Event Watch and searching and stuff like that. But our main focus, and what I wanted to show you guys today, and I'll go back to develop because I know that one has alerting in it, is really this process. This process got the information from devices in the field. So these are the devices in the field. The information comes in, it gets parsed, gets normalized, and then before it writes to the database, it reviews it and says, do you hit a trigger? If I hit a trigger, it scores it. And then the scoring of the system determines whether that alert becomes something that needs to be reviewed, right? So as you look at yourself and you say, I want to be a CISO, right? Ask yourself, where am I going with that, right? And so I just want to bring up the chart one more time. How do I do it? I'm share screen. I just think that this is the key I wanted to talk to you guys today about, is the focus, our focus, even though we're a SIM company, is establishing a security process that's continuously monitored. Is a very important aspect, right? So what we focus on is the data collection, which is, believe it or not, like I said, it's AU2 and AU3. I need to get the data into my system, right? Once I do that, you saw me searching, I could go through there and I could select. Remember, I just said, hey, select this machine, tell me all the users. I could have just said, look at all the data, tell me all the users. And I would get a list of users for that time window. So I grab the time window for the week of install and I say, tell me all the users this week. And I output it, okay? And I do the same thing. Tell me all the scene assets, tell me all the scene services. Then I move to the next thing. Now I've got a listing of them. Then I make sure I can implement vulnerability checking. Now you notice in Sentinel-1, I can actually see if there's any vulnerable executables. And so I can leverage that, but it's still one of my Qualys and my Nessus, because I need to see the outside scans and compare those against the configurations. Once all that's data in, then I actually go back to my rules and I solidify my network. And I didn't really get into that, but remember I showed you that SSH command or that SSH watch. What you do with that is you turn it on and you say, these are all my people allowed. And then when I'm not happy, when there's a trigger, I can review it. And let's say it's JP, it's okay. I can then suppress that alert from ever showing up again, and becomes a suppressed rule, right? And it's only for JP. If somebody else does it or another machine does it, I get the alert back. So we call that N+1 security. And what that means is the way I operate today is correct. I know it doesn't seem like a great idea, right? You think something's infected, and you should think that way. But from an anomaly perspective, the way I operate today is correct. Anything new tomorrow needs to be reviewed. And that's how you, after a while, think about it, after 6 months, you have the 6-month profiling of what's allowed. And any change is much easier to detect. All right, Jim, you hear me talk. JP, I'm done. See, I told you I'm not a guy that's going to take hours.
See, you're not done, because there are questions you have in the peanut gallery down in the chat.
Nice.
Peanuts are good.
Always.
Let's go, JP. What are they?
Steve?
You want me to ask my question? You're not going to read it for me?
No.
Yeah, you're supposed to read them, JP. That's how
Either
this
way.
works.
I'm fine by that.
Because somebody else may have that same question.
So, Chris, my question has to do with the systems that are most often integrated or shared data with. So do you share data with ticketing systems? Do you share data with alerting systems? What's the sort of the common practice? What's the best practice out there?
So that's you know, JP and I actually had this conversation before. So we're a pure SIM, which means that I'm not a SOAR, and we can talk about what a SOAR is, even though we have behavioral relationships to responses. And I'm not a ticketing system. We use internally, we use PagerDuty, but of course, integrating things with ServiceNow or Jira. The key here, the reason why, you know, JP and I have talked about it, is some people are boombox people, right? They buy a boombox and it has everything from the CD player, right, all the way to the speakers and the amp and everything. It's all in one unit. Other people are stereophonics, right? And they have a separate receiver from an amp. They buy the speakers, they buy the subwoofer. Everything is bought because it's best of breed, or at least the best they can afford. I am more of a stereo guy. I believe that it's very important when I do any rollout of technology that it can swap things out. So when we collect data really two different ways, through syslog and through web APIs. Now we have Kafka feed loads, we can load by agents, we can do all that other stuff. 99% of the time, I tell my clients to go that way. Now, the scary reason why I tell them is because that way there you can add other SIMs, add other devices, you can switch SIMs. The second you develop an infrastructure where the collectors are owned by the SIM itself or by the EDR, you can't move from them, right? So it's very important that each component is separate and it's swappable. And it's the same thing with a ticketing system. One day you're going to say, I don't like this tipping. I like Halo better. I like ServiceNow better. There is differences in technology on ticketing. And the same thing with SOAR, right? We do atomics, which means that I see this, I want to call this API. If that's all you want to do, you don't need a SOAR. In fact, most people really don't need a SOAR. A SOAR is more complicated. It's like you wrote a ticket and in 60 minutes it didn't get closed. I want you to take that ticket and send it to the duty officer. That's what a SOAR can do. But you know what? A ticketing system can do that too, right? So you really have to ask yourself, what do you want the SOAR to do? You want to do a GeoIP lookup? You can do GeoIP lookups in our system itself. If I drilled down to the thing, I could have pulled up the GeoIP instead of going to MaxMind. In fact, we do two techniques. One's called the lookups, and then one's called dynamic binding, which means that I can have another audit log tell me, oh, I saw the DHCP, here's your host name, and it binds it to the system. And dynamic binding is a very important aspect of UEBA. That's what separates a true UEBA from somebody who says, oh, we have UEBA because I can see the key in the field. When the key is not in the field, the UEBA can figure it out. It does a thing called transition technology. So did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Or did I get around it? Okay.
No, you did. So the common products out there, PagerDuty, ServiceNow. I mean, that's probably what people.
I divide everything up that way. Yeah, I divide it that way. I think the SIM should be a pure SIM. Like I said, our data searching is excellent. Like I could have gone back last year. We do 365. We support both regex and Lucene searching, both in real time and in static format. We keep a copy. This is another requirement, 853. We keep a copy of the original message. A lot of SIM product vendors don't do that. They'll parse it and they keep the parsed record, but not the original. That's not NIST compliant, right? So there's a lot of things that we do. We follow all the NIST audit requirements when we implement, all the way down to organizational separation.
Chris, can you give everybody an example why using the NIST is important? Because I know I'm going to get a lot of feedback. Well, my company's under PCI. I don't really care about NIST.
PCI is different. So I think that's fair. And GDPR is different. And BICA is different. So, but why NIST? So most of the time you're going to be in the United States, right? 65% of the internet is in the United States. And the US's infrastructure, the primary one for all the government is NIST, right? But NIST is the combination of all government regulations. That includes OMB 08016. It includes the presidential directives, everything that includes anything in the government outside of the DoD 2700, which it's very similar to it, is in NIST. Okay, and so all the government regs are in NIST, and they're organized in a way in which they're basically in a column, and that column breakdown is very similar to 27. That 2700 number is the ISO. That's how the DoD got their numbering system. It's the ISO standards for security were based on common criteria, and they were very similar to this. Now, obviously, through revisions, I think we're on revision 5 in NIST. We've kind of slowly moved away from the ISO standards. So, but in the international world, you're going to see the ISO standard is fairly important. But in the US, the NIST standard is, and I bring it up because HIPAA, well, JP really brought it up. HIPAA is actually NIST. It's not something completely different. HIPAA.
The 866.
Yeah. 853s, the 860 is the HIPAA, but it's based on the NIST standards, and all NIST standards are based on 853.
And particularly though, Chris, the 66 is actually HIPAA.
Yeah,
JP
66 is HIPAA.
And Chris,
yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I'm on my phone, so Hey, I just wanted to caveat what Chris was saying and what JP was saying, right? When you talk about HIPAA and when you talk about the other standards, most of them, in some form or another, they bastardize NIST, right? So HIPAA, if you want to be HIPAA compliant, and I know this because I used to work at a medical records provider, right? If you want to be HIPAA compliant, you actually follow FSMA. And FSMA is nothing more than NIST.
Yep.
If you follow NIST, you will be compliant with 99.95% of anything out there, to include GDPR, by the way. You know, Chris, you mentioned that ISO is relevant for international. You have a lot of international companies, to include mine, honestly, that are starting to follow NIST because they realize the benefit of following NIST. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. And it's the more people understand it, the better. The term FSMA, of course, that's the Federal Information Security Management Act, which gives NIST the power to create the regulations, and that regulation is 853. So there's a lot of terms for the same thing. Now, GDPR does have twists. It does have some unique requirements on the ability to delete data. And that's a fascinating issue for anybody in audit, because our data has to be immutable. So it is a conflict. The one thing that's important to understand in GDPR is just because you have the right for information to be deleted doesn't mean it gets deleted. Okay, it goes in front of a court and they have to decide whether that deletion is acceptable. If I say no, right? So there's certain things around the GDPR. You have to have a representative over there, but for the most part, as long as you're following NIST, you're following everybody else. You really are. Yeah. Okay, JP, anything else on there?
That was the only question that I saw on there. Does anyone else have any questions?
I got a quick question. I know NIST, the framework itself, is available for download. But do any of you know if there's an easier to follow on-site implementation guide for NIST that can be used by consultants and the like?
Okay, yeah.
Or
So
is what's on their website just what there is? You know?
So what's on the website is a very detailed version, and it includes everything from the low, the medium, and the high. And if you go there, there is a spreadsheet one. In Rev 5, you're literally talking over 1,000 different requirements. However, I think what is it? We'll use JP's brain. What is it? Is it NIST 171 or something? The CMMC?
Right, 171 and 172. But
okay, the CMMC will give you a subset of requirements that the government feels are the most essential for a contractor to be in line with the NIST. It's a self-assessment spreadsheet. It's easy to get your hands on it. If you don't, I'll give one to JP. And that's probably the easiest way a consultant can go in there from a governance point of view and direct somebody to say, you should be at least hitting these things.
So you said NIST 171 and 172?
That is
it's called the CMMC. There's a spreadsheet for it.
Oh, okay. So the CMMC spreadsheet is the most practical way a consultant can do it.
No.
JP says no, but go on, JP.
You need to know every last one of those documents. Okay, some of them are retired, so you don't have to actually know it. But here's the thing: if you know, do you know how to write a disaster recovery plan? No, you don't. NIST does. You have the 834 to do that. Okay, what do you know about zero trust? Nothing. That's fine. NIST has the document for it. Every attribute that you can think of in terms of security, there's a NIST document out there. So I wouldn't even look at any of the documentation till I realize what NIST already has, because most of the compliance models that are out there, NIST has their documents plagiarized so these other people can look like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's
crosswalks.
But from a checklist point of view, a governance point of view, like if you're a PwC, I've got a PwC governance doc that's over 5,000 requirements. It can get quite complicated. So the question is if you're going to do a quick assessment versus a detailed to get paid assessment, right? And that's really the twist, right? So I agree with JP. And the other thing is that there's other tools out there. We're going to talk. I think you got Cynomi lined up, JP.
Yep.
So I won't go into their competitors, but there are companies that focus on documentation. Okay, that will help you square away your documents. But in mind, like you can see, I go over here and say, get this squared away, then get the documents, because it makes no sense writing a document that's something that you don't even have, right? So it's very important to understand what's in your network prior to going to getting to the documents. Okay, and this is separate from even incident response. You should try to figure out what's out there. And the other standard that we didn't bring up, JP, I talked SOC certification. That's the ICS standards. And so the ICS standards are the ones when you go through SOC certification that really matter. They're a very small subset and has a lot to do with how you manage your cloud instance.
Well, and there are crosswalks. And what I mean by crosswalk, there are documents that tell you, hey, if you satisfy this standard in this, you've satisfied this standard in whatever other compliance model you're looking at.
Yeah, listen, if you're NIST right down to the high level, there's nothing that is gonna shock you.
Yeah, so to answer the question in plain terms, right? Yes, one of those, the CMMC spreadsheet, something like that, absolutely is an easy way to get started with NIST, and is an easy way to get those requirements down and things like that. Another place to look at is STIG Viewer. If you're not familiar with STIG Viewer is an awesome website. It has, it has templates for hardening standards, templates that you can actually import and export and things like that. They have their own version of a NIST breakdown as well. But yeah,
our appliance, Leon, you're right on our appliance, the Fluency appliance actually is STIG. We actually have a STIG document for our appliance. We go through it. And what the STIG is, as Leon's going through it, this is a very technical way of looking at things, people. The STIG is how do those requirements act when you get to the device itself? How do I test it? Right? So the STIG gives you a guideline that bridges between Windows and NIST 853. So if your environment is all Windows environment, the Windows STIG will help you out. It was a great point. I forgot about the STIG.
Hey, and can you, for everybody that's on there, because some of my folks are new, when you use acronyms, please define the acronym for folks. Leon, tell them what a STIG is, please.
Yeah, sorry, JP. Sorry. Look, I'm starting to get flashbacks to when I was in the military. I'm sorry.
You and me both.
So Security Technical Implementation Guide. I'm sorry if you know my dogs.
I forgot what it stood for. I'm like trying to remember what it is.
No, that's it. Security Technical Implementation Guide.
And now you know what, you can forget it and call it STIG.
Right.
Thank you, JP, for that. That's what I'm struggling with as being new to security.
Yeah, and unfortunately, people are going to throw a lot of acronyms at you. I'm going to try to slow them down as best as I can. But anyway,
I've been doing this for 8 years. I just found out what a crosswalk was yesterday.
I actually just had an interview on Monday where all they did was a few behavioral questions. Then all the technical questions were, can you define this and tell me what it's used for?
Okay. Yeah, at the beginning, it is a lot of definitions.
Right. And once you get them committed to memory, trust me, there are acronym lists out there that you can actually download that tell you flat out what all these silly terms mean, because folks in the industry will acronym you to death. And you spend the majority of your time looking up the acronym. That's all that meant.
So we actually have a financial deck, JP, and the second slide is acronyms.
Hey, when I do risk assessment for different clients, the back page actually, I'd probably say the second to the last page is nothing but acronyms and published guides that I use to go through their assessment and tell them why these things exist. Now, for Chris, this was tremendous. I hate the fact that you think you had to rush. You
Yeah,
really
you
didn't.
know what? I think if you listen, it's very important to keep things smaller, to tell you the truth, especially in a first call, is because JP, if I cover everything we do, you won't remember what we should be doing, right?
No. I just didn't want you to feel like you were on the time clock for it. You had when you first said it, you still had about a half an hour to go. And I always try to make sure I build in for questions so people can actually, hey, I didn't understand when you said STIG. Well, I didn't understand this acronym, because the important thing for us, we want everybody, even our new people, we want to drag them to where everybody understands what's going on. This is not for us people with a little bit of snow on the roof. This is to teach this next generation coming up. These are the things that you need to know in terms of security if you're going to do this. So I really want to think, how do I say your name? Shaka, is it right? Or Chuka? Well, anyway, he asked a really important question. And the reason why I'm such a advocate fan of NIST, because every time some new compliance model comes out, oh, that's this control in this, that's this control in this. And it infuriates me because half of my dissertation was written on why do we pay attention to these other compliance models when NIST is telling you flat out what you need to do. If you have to do something different for your particular industry, just add the controls you need for your industry, because NIST is telling me flat out what I need to do. And thank you, Steve. That does grind my gears. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, JP, this will get you too. So the GSA, they're going to come up with their own framework for zero trust, even though we know NIST and the DoD already have their own. There's like, we want something different from those two, but it's going to be essentially the same thing.
Yeah. And that's the sad part about it is, because when you read it, matter of fact, yes, I'm older than a lot of folks probably on this call, and I'm not going to call out those who are older than me. However, let me rewind it back to the early 2000s. And for you kids that were still in middle school, a lot of this stuff wasn't on the internet and readily available, especially depending on the industry that you were in. So let me go ahead and take you back in this time machine, where a company called Booz Allen and Hamilton, and I'm calling them out by name because it's BS what happened. They were paid money by the federal government to come up with a compliance standard that all government organizations under the DoD had to follow, by the name of DIACAP. Okay, DIACAP was basically designed so the military would have their framework. Well, when you looked at the framework, it was nothing but NIST. They basically rewrote NIST governance to sit back and say, okay, let's collect our check. Only for the government to realize, Jesus Christ, this looks like NIST. Why the heck weren't we just using this before? Then they turned around and started using NIST. They pulled up the 853, say, hey, you know what? This is the DoD standard. This is what we're going to use.
Booz Allen Hamilton actually wrote NIST.
They wrote pieces of NIST. If you go through individual,
they were the prime contractor for writing the original NIST,
right?
which,
But
by the way, they stole from the DoD.
That's true. But what I'm saying, Chris, the government paid them $20 million to come up with DIACAP, and they already.
You're just being jealous now. You're just being jealous. You would have taken
yes,
that.
I am. I'm a little bit bitter, and it grinds my gears that I didn't get to grift the government on that same thing. Okay, I'm not going to lie. Now, let me go. I also have worked in the intelligence community. The intelligence community did pretty much the same thing. They had the ICD. I'm sorry, good gracious, I forgot the actual acronym for it. But then they turned around and came up with the ICD 503. What the ICD 503 is, Intelligence Community Document 503, that was nothing but NIST. Okay. And it infuriates me because one of the things that Tiffany just said, everybody wants to come up with their own standard, but when they come up with their own standard, it's nothing but repackaged NIST. So that's one of the things that grinds my gears. Let me give you another thing that grinds my gears for this week. Inside of the info security website, and I'll post this later on LinkedIn if you're looking at it, inside of the chapter, while we wait for Iran to come on. They have made the claim.
I'm on.
Yep. Hey, I didn't see it, man. But anyway.
Yeah, please cut JP off. Feel free to cut JP off.
Absolutely. I think it's about time. I heard so many acronyms in like 60 seconds. So
you win the military, you know there were a lot of acronyms.
Absolutely. Well,
hey, okay, so real quick, this article basically states most ransomware infections are self-installed. A new research from a managed detection response provider, Expel, found that most ransomware attacks in 2021 were self-installed. The finding include the company's inaugural annual report on cybersecurity trends and predictions, published Thursday. Researchers found out that 8 out of 10 ransomware infections occurred after victims unwittingly opened a zip file containing malware code. Abuse of third-party access accounted for 3% of all ransomware incidents, and 4% were caused by exploiting a software vulnerability on the perimeter.
So that executable file, was it through an email or was it like in a Dropbox or something like that? Does it tell them how they received it?
Take your pick. They didn't say what the transmission method was. They just said that people are opening up stuff they shouldn't be opening. So if you guys have a next gen antivirus or even antivirus at all, right click on that particular zip file and at least scan it. Now, if it's 0 day, yeah, it might not pick it up, but 9 times out of 10, it probably will pick it up. So it should.
Any kind of XDR.
But if you're feeling good with McAfee, I'm gonna go ahead and let you roll with that, okay?
Who's doing that, JP?
Hopefully nobody on this call.
They usually use their firewall vendors endpoint protection.
You know,
Palo Alto, Cisco.
You know, a firewall is only as good as the people that put the codes in for.
Set the automatic updates, call it a day. We can talk about IPS 24 hours after they release them. You're okay.
Anyway, anybody that I need to have their ISC square number, throw it into the chat. Thank you again, Chris. We will talk with Fluency also on the other side of our division later this year. I implore you guys to make sure you understand what we got going on with our second division. I see David has joined us.
Hi, hi everybody.
Hey, David. Let's go ahead and start our second presentation. Drop your IC square numbers in, and I'll make sure you get your credits for attending this. Go ahead, Ron.
Good evening, everybody. Well, this is the second time that I'm attending. First time it was just listening. It was super interesting. I think it was a month ago, right, JP? On the last chapter.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's great to be here. This time we will share some of our insights and kind of what we have learned from our experience over the past year or so while building Cynomi. Together with me is David Primor, our CEO. So David, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
First, I would like to congratulate Jim. Congratulations for a new role. Absolutely. Lots of good luck.
Thanks, Ron.
I'm sure you'll do great. Great,
you, sir.
Great company to be part of.
Thank you, sir.
So we will have a presentation that we've prepared for you guys in regards to our strategic cybersecurity operation platform. And JP, do I have rights to present?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, give it a try. If not, I can do it.
No, it's good. I'll do it. Hold on, bear with me for a sec.
Looky.
See my screen?
It looks beautiful.
Yep.
All right, fantastic. So let's start. Didi, you want to start? Kick off?
Go ahead, Zeran. I will join in a minute.
Absolutely. All right. So most of you probably don't know us. I'll present myself, kind of a quick intro. My name is Zeran Rosenblum. I'm the head of partnership with Cynomi. I've joined almost 6 months ago for this great train ride of bringing a new service platform offering for the MSP, MSSP, IT consultancy, and VCSO of the world. My career span for the past 25 years, I've been part of a great companies like Cisco, NetApp, and Symantec for many years, serving the channel community, building partnership worldwide. Over the past 6 or so years, totally immersed within the cyberspace, working with great startup companies out of Israel mainly, penetrating into the US market, starting with a startup back in 2015, walking into the enterprise space, doing great, building a great partnership with local financial sector. Over the past 2 years, I've been focusing mainly on the MSP and MSSP space. This is a great ecosystem to be part of, really robust, a lot of dynamics going on there in terms of capturing new tools, new automation tools, looking into disrupting a lot of business segments and sectors across the US, and bringing a lot of great technology, which is most of them are enterprise grade, into the SMB and mid-market space. Over the past, again, 6 months of being part of Cynomi, we're getting a great head start into the US market, focusing again into mainly those MSPs, smart MSPs and MSSPs that are building their VCSO type services. This is what we are going to focus today on, what we actually doing, what we see out there, kind of educate you a little bit of what the trends are and why we feel that there is a gap that can be filled with great automation platforms like ourselves.
Hey,
Didi, the floor is
Ron,
yours. Yeah,
Ron, real quick before you get deep in it, can you tell everybody what an MSP is and an MSSP?
absolutely. Oh, okay, great. So I will do that through the presentation anyway, but MSP, managed service providers. So most MSPs are doing kind of managed service offering of mainly IT and networking. Portion of them already have a great stack of cybersecurity offering, anywhere from RMMs to endpoint security, XDRs, and many others. MSSPs, on the other hand, are those that specifically focus on, it's called managed security service providers, mainly focus on the security side of the house. They tend to be kind of a more consultancy approach, building frameworks, plans, remediation plans, and other cyber posture offering to enable, again, SMBs and mid-market companies to better assess their security gaps. In many times, they do some sort of work on a day-to-day basis, but in general, they allow the ecosystem to expand via working together with MSPs and other VARs that contribute into the day-to-day activity of setting up products, solutions, and fixing and break fix for that space. So these are basically the MSPs and MSSPs of the world. They're contributing billions of dollars into the economy. In the US alone, both of those kind of sectors are around 45,000 in the US itself. They're ranging from small MSPs of 1 to 2 people up to thousands. And they're driving key drivers in the market, taking huge chunk and allowing us as a nation, right, to be much more protected while providing great cybersecurity professional into that space. That's kind of a 20,000 feet overview of the market. Now, David, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is me, and I guess the story of Cynomi is the story of David, myself. So I would like to tell you a little bit about why I'm decided actually to focus on this mid-market crisis and cybersecurity, and actually talking about my journey. So I have a solid background in technology. I'm a freak of technology. I like to create things. I like innovation. I did it all my life. Most of my career was in the A200 unit, which is the intelligence unit in Israel. I'm Lieutenant Colonel from there. Did a lot of things that I cannot talk about, so this talk will not concentrate about or focus about A200, but after a very long period there, I had the privilege to establish the Cybersecurity Authority in Israel. I was the leader of, or executive director of technology. In between, I succeeded to finish my PhD, and I had such a unique experience to be in CERN, Geneva, for the big experiment of finding the Higgs boson, which also called the God particle, won the Nobel Prize about a few years ago. I did my PhD there, and really fascinating about dealing with data, analyzing things, and get clever. And I think during this journey, especially learning about cyber from different aspects, offensive and defensive, I was sure when I been in a cyber directorate in the cyber authority in Israel, that you should be very clever in order to protect the nation. So I really concentrate in building the national CERT, building incident response tools, intelligence that is needed to protect the nation. Of course, doing collaboration with DHS and other countries. And I think that alongside to my efforts in changing and bringing the most sophisticated technology to Israel to protect the civil sector, there was a branch in the directorate that tried to make better the regulation and recommendation to the civil space that they could better protect themselves. And we worked together, but it was kind of separate. And I think that I fully understand the difficulty of protecting not the critical infrastructure and the big enterprise in Israel, not that there are big enterprise in Israel. It's not so big like in the US, but there is a major difference between mid-market SMBs and big companies. And I think that I realized that when I just was a cyber consultant to different startups, and one time my friend called me that he's been attacked, and it was a website defacement, And what we realized that he had some, let's say, different flag of Arabian country on the website. And what we found out that after looking inside the server, that he's been attacked for a long time. So it was, he's lucky to find out that someone make it so visible that we could see all the other creatures that out there in his computer. So we fixed that, and we did everything we can in order to prevent the next attack that is going to make another website defacement. But guess what happened after 3 months? He called me again. It always Thursday, and Thursday in Israel, Thursday night, it's like Friday night in the US. So he had a ransomware and left RDP port, which was open. And then, of course, the question is what to do. There was no incident response in place, and and of course, he didn't know actually what to do. So we found out that it's not all the computers, and we decided not to pay anything because the damage is not so bad. And we turned to the IT external services in order to see whether they have backup or not. And then we understand that we have to close all RDP ports to make better the backups, etc., etc. And guess what? 3 months after, so I said that he's a very lucky guy because he's been attacked 3 times this year. He called me again, and now it's a data leak. Data leak probably from one of his ex employees that actually had the same password active, so he could enter the system, and since he has a privileged permissions, he could download lots of sensitive data. And then I understood that you cannot treat every time different attack vector. There must be a systematic approach that enable a company to handle cyber protection in a different manner. It's not a question of only tools. It's not a question of only processes. It's a combination of everything. And when I asked him, who is in charge of your cybersecurity and IT, he said, okay, I think it's important, but I don't know anything about that. It's my service provider. And when I asked his service provider whether he's responsible, he told us, no, I'm doing only what the customer is asking to do. So there is a big gap there. So I understood that something should be changed. The capability or the functionality of a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, that actually knows how to protect big enterprise, the critical infrastructure, is missing. Mid-market and SMBs don't know how to protect themselves. And this missing part is what I call strategic cybersecurity, to understand how to make it whole. And I think that the problem is that, and I think it's not a secret, that since it's very difficult to protect these small and medium businesses and sometimes mid-market, they have been attacked more. More than 60% of these businesses have been attacked only for the last year. They have smaller budgets to be able to protect themselves, and they are understaffed. They don't have this CISO ability. They depend on MSPs and sometimes MSSPs, and they don't get enough protection. Can you move to the next slide, please? So we think that strategic cyber operation is critical. We think that we should find a way that SMBs and mid-market could enjoy the wisdom of people who are experienced, professional, understand the NIST, for example, as a framework. There's so many people that know how to protect companies, and I think this knowledge should be part of the SMBs and the mid-market space. And I leave Eran, Eran will continue to explain a little bit better about MSPs and MSSPs and how we think that virtual CISOs might be the answer for these questions. Eran, please.
Good, thanks, David. So that was a kind of a great background of how we started and why we started, what we tried to bring to the market, and which gap we're trying to resolve here. But I think in order to understand better of where we're heading and what we actually bring to the table is to better understand the role of the MSPs, the role of the MSSPs, and how the market should probably look at them as kind of the beacon for the information security offering. And let's just examine that for a little while. So MSPs and MSSPs, those guys are investing heavily in building professional offering and services into the mid-market and SMB space. Their first goal is to understand the threats that applied both to their customer networks, but the foremost is for their network itself, because most of the MSPs today are providing, as we all know, SaaS platforms, cybersecurity platforms, which are either being hosted by those MSPs, provided by the MSPs, or being hosted within other cloud providers. So first and foremost, they need to understand how they protect themselves before they protect their customer base. They have to understand the risk posed by malicious actors. They have to keep up with the ever-changing threat landscape. They have to better understand the risk, and they have to bring everything in a language that is easy for the customers to understand, and to make sure that the customer better assess their risk and what needs to be done in order to provide a better security based on their business offering. And we all understand, you can be fully secured, almost, but that means that probably most of the business processes within any organization will be held and will be stopped, since there is no way that you will be fully protected while still enable your employees, whether they are within the office or remotely, have the ability to access critical applications, business application, etc. So there is always a need to assess, which type of solutions I have to bring in, which are good enough solution, but at the same time to allow the business continuity to keep on going. Now, the other things that they need to do is understand and generate a tailored, prioritized, actionable remediation plan. This is super important to understand in any given moment when breach happens, when ransomware attacks are being discussed. They have to use different tools and different methodologies in order to come up with a solid, prioritized, actionable plan that is sustainable and that can be delivered in a certain length of time for the their customers to be able to embrace. The third thing that the MSPs and MSSPs have to face is drive the customer into more mature cybersecurity practice and plan. And for that, most of the MSPs have to use truly professional personnel, which sometimes are not in reach. They, in many cases, turn into qualified CISOs, MSSPs that actually hold CISOs on board in order to better understand what type of mature, cyber mature plan needs to be embedded or created per customer. Now let's look at the MSP and MSSP challenge. They always have to have a clear visibility into their customer's environment and risk posture. There's many tools out there that are doing that, but in many cases, they have to deal with lots of tools, lots of technologies. They have to keep up to date in terms of what can be visible, what needs to be actually measured, and how everything come into eventually a risk and posture plan. Yet, processes and insight are spread across disparate tools and data sources. The second big challenge that they have, within other challenges that of course they have many, they must implement and ensure policies that minimize risk and deploy security controls. So now we're talking about marrying both security and policies. And I think marrying those two silos is critical for their success. And it's a huge challenge actually to be sufficient and understanding security and at the same time understanding policies and frameworks. So actually there's a solution for that. And many of the MSPs and the MSPs are kind of evolving into and morphing into a new service offering, which is based on a professional of the CISO. But since they are they need to serve and cater many of their customers, a vCISO or vCISO service is coming into place. So why a vCISO? Why we see that trend coming in into that market? We see a huge uptake in the number of vCISO services offering both by the MSP and MSSP. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Of course, I think the number one reason is cost. CISO can be a truly expensive deal for mid-market and of course for SMBs, and that can range from hundreds of thousands of dollars through millions of dollars, depends how many personnel they have to bring on board. So cost is one thing. Flexibility is something that most organizations need over time. CISOs, again, they're expensive. They work on specific projects. They turn to become really immersed into one or two top projects that needs to be implemented within any given time. And that flexibility over time is faded. And to have the ability to get a vCISO services from an MSP or MSSP, actually allowing you to tackle many more projects and implementation over time. Other vCISO solutions are, productivity is another thing. Governments is shifting also many of the MSPs and MSSPs into the understanding that they need to upscale their services and know-how, and they need somebody on board to allow their customers eventually to absorb and actually take those requirements in-house. Building strategy around cybersecurity, mentoring their customers management team. Those are things that actually drive the vCISO service all across the board. So what's the importance of the vCISO? Well, the vCISO is doing many things, and most of you are cyber professionals. You do some of those things. Maybe you do all of those things, anywhere from risk assessment, gap and remediation analyses, strategic security plan, policy creation, etc. The vCISO should have the ability to do that, but it really requires technology to assist him in order to put those kinds of services in scale. And that's where us, Cynomi, is coming into play. We understood that a platform that can marry both policies, framework, together with security assessment and remediation is key to provide them with the ability to scale up quickly, provide them with insights in a very short time, and scale through lots of customers in any given moment. And in order for everybody here to better understand what we do and actually how we do that, I will turn back to David to
Okay, great. Thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you. So actually we talked about what is needed actually to provide every mid-market company, every SMB, the ability to have a CISO, or actually virtual CISO, because CISO we understand is something which is really, really expensive. And we believe that every company should have strategic cyber protection. Every company should be able to plan the protection and use all the professionality that you have, CISOs have. And the big gap is that it's not possible currently to have enough manpower among human resources to provide with the entities that are responsible for cybersecurity for these SMBs, the MSPs and the MSPs. There is no way to be able to give all the need for these virtual CISO services. And what Cynomi is given the MSPs and the MSSPs the capability of using technology, automation, AI to create processes that enable them to serve many companies at scale with limited human resources. So we look at every process that could be automated, and we are trying to do that. So let's begin exploring what we are currently doing. And of course, in our roadmap, there are much more. I'll say that we are working with lots of virtual CISOs. We are not only in our company, but also outside our company, and we understand what should be done. So here you can see our dashboard. And I think what is really, really you can see in here is actually, it's very simple. You can see graph, that's something that people understand. You can see the cyber posture, which is the first thing that you should know as a company. Are you protected? And in which level? and in which domains, and for which attack vectors. So we see here data leak, website defacement, ransomware, fraud. And it's really important to understand what are your threats, main threats, what is the company concern, and what is the focus of the cyber protection. You can see also in the dashboard list of it's actually policies or list of cyber vectors and the level of security comparing to a benchmark. And this is also something which has a psychological influence on the employees. It's important to understand what is your level. It's important to understand what is the benchmark level. What is your target? And it gives you motivation to achieve it, to be better. So this is something that we are calculating using several vectors. The first vector is actually, please run, is the creation of tailor-made policies. So we are able in less than 2 hours in smart questionnaires, which are actually built and based on first questionnaire that we understand the nature of the company, number of employees, the type of the company, whether it's financial, education, etc., the level, the technology they use, and we generate tailor-made policies which actually tells the company what they should do. And this is really, really important because as we understand, it's not only tools, it's not only having the best EDR and in the same time to use 7 digits password. It's the holistic approach of understanding what is the minimum level of protection you should have in the different domains, in email, in incident response, in HR, in access, in SaaS. Actually, the most of the framework that NIST is presenting to us and other compliancy like 2701 or CIS version 8 or CMMC or any other things that is related to that company. And we are taking everything into account and creating this framework. And using this framework, we prioritized. And this is something which is really different in Cynomi, the ability to say which tasks which are related to a framework is more important than the other. Where to start? Because let's say you get 500 tasks to do, 300, 100, 50. It's too much to SMB, sometimes to mid-market. 5 things, 5 tasks to be done, it's a project for a quarter. So you have to decide what to do. And who is the professional who knows what the most important thing that the company should do? What are the 10 things or the 20 things that the company should do during this year? What is more important? Website defacement, GDPR, ransomware? I don't know. It depends on the company, depends on the threats, depends on the infrastructure. So the ability to take everything into account and to give a strategic recommendation, it's an art. And we are trying to help the virtual CISO, even if it's not the best CISO in the world, or if it's a best CISO in the world that want to serve 30 companies, and he cannot give each company 3 days a week, only half days a week, and he needs help. He needs some clever automation, clever technology to advise him. He could change it. He could use his experience, but we are trying to give him the best practice using our CISOs. And what is so great about that we collect data. And the data that we are collecting can help us to improve our algorithms in the future. It's not only that we generate the task and have a nice dashboard we know that reports are really, really important. Not only that it's the interface or the engagement with the customer, but also it's something that takes time. You all know that making a presentation takes a lot of time if you want the presentation to be nice, but generating a report that would be demonstrated to the board, to the CEO, to I don't know who is going to look. You want to have a very nice report. So actually, we create these reports that you can see here. We try to make it very clear, simple, nice, and fast. And I think that the main thing is the time that we are saving using these reports. So if we put everything together, we are trying to take the difficult aspects of the role of virtual CISO or CISO, and we help them to do it not only once, but at scale for many companies in parallel, because we don't need human hours. We just need more computation power, and this is easy. So we are making automated policy creation. So we make the questionnaire or the question process very easy and intuitive. We are creating cyber posture versus benchmarks. We are taking this risk assessment measuring and make it continuously. So you could compare what happened a quarter ago or a month ago, or what happens after 1 year. And you can show your customer that actually the risk has been reduced. We know how to offer, how to prioritize the plan of action, but give the virtual CISO the ability to change it, because we don't know all. We are using not only questionnaire, but also evidence like scanning, external scanning, internal scanning. And in the future, we will going to integrate with other data out there in order to be able to say more clever things about your posture. And we are trying to build the best report we can. So this is Cynomi. We think that we are answering a really critical gap, which is going to be bigger and bigger. We see that cyber insurance become really, really obligatory. So, and cyber insurance currently has lots of problems because they lose money, so many attacks, and they are looking for the ability to assess more carefully companies, and companies that might use Cynomi or other risk assessment, virtual CISO platform will be able to get cyber insurance more easily. We see that compliance become really, really important, but together with, but it's not enough, because you don't want to be attacked, and SMBs and mid-market not only afraid from not being compliant, but also not being attacked. And the combination of these cybersecurity risk and compliance risk is the key of knowing how to prioritize. And I think that the bottom line that we believe, our vision is Cynomi, that everyone will need a CISO. Actually, everyone needs a CISO. And with Cynomi, we enable MSPs, MSSPs, cyber consultants, or anybody who wants to provide virtual CISO to any company to be able to do so. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for the opportunity. And we would like to get any questions if you have, or contact me and Eran later on if you want more information. about which the virtual CISO, about Cynomi, about anything else. Thank you.
Well, now it's time for questions or anything else that you have in mind. I know you guys always have great things to great things in hand and some great insights based on your professional and your day-to-day tasks. So we're more than happy to address anything on that route.
Yeah, I have a question. Just a quick question. With so many brands being out there, how do leaders know within cybersecurity operations? How do you truly assess if a product or service can provide you quality functionality versus just buying the brand and hype? So is there best practice or process to, ensure that the money that you're spending actually matches the functionality that you're getting in the product or service within the security operations? Thank you.
You mean generally, what should we buy, a brand or other company which claims that they are doing better? What is the process of buying new products, if I understand you correctly?
Well, I mean, yeah. How do you ensure that you're getting the quality of the same the level of impact, so to speak, of money that you're putting into a service when it comes to MSP versus MSSP and things of that nature?
I'm not sure that I completely understand.
Okay.
Let's say.
Let me tackle that a second.
Mhm.
Okay. So when you go out and you look at application, and let's go from the first presentation. I'm going to look at Splunk. I'm going to look at Fluency. I'm going to look at QRadar. And I'm sitting back saying these are all SIM tools. Okay. There are a couple of factors that you have to look at in terms of that. You have to look at what functionality fits with what the organization you're trying to fit that application to. Also, what you're looking at is cost, because one of the main things that most organizations are going to judge you on is how much they have to pay for said application. But in terms of, let's say you put in an application and that application does or does not perform to the standard that you thought it was going to, hopefully you have a 1-year contract and you throw them out. Okay, because in most cases, there are organizations that say, hey, I'm going to buy Cisco no matter what. Well, if you go buy Cisco Pix firewall, in my opinion, that's not the best firewall that you can buy. But that's only from knowing what some of the attributes of other vendors' products is. So you have to do a lot of research, and you almost have to do it like a project in itself to make sure that the attributes that your client wants to have are being served by the product that you're going to bring forth. If that kind of helps. There's no guarantee on what attributes of a product are going to work better in your environment. Anybody else want to add to that?
Nobody got fired buying IBM, right? So there's
not till the 90s.
Yeah, right.
Hey guys, I've got.
I think it's just to add to what you've just said, JP. Going into the Gartner Magic Quadrant and pick any of those will probably won't get you fired, right? Most likely that many of those technologies out there are pretty similar. And the implementation process and who you use in order to implement that based on their know-how, based on their understanding of the customer, getting to know your, I guess, prioritize applications and business processes that you like to protect. This is crucial. More than that, using any kind of penetration testing technology in order to assess how well you protected is another layer that you always need to have in order to make sure that the project that you went through and the technology that you integrated is well set up and indeed resolve any of the gaps that you have found prior to that. That's my.
I can add that I have 3 friends that always I consult with them about the best the products that we consider to buy or to recommend. And I guess the wisdom of the CISOs out there that already checked these products is really something that should be done. This is one thing. And I think the other is that it's what type of person are you? Do you want to take risk and to go to use startups that have new techniques and new approaches? Or do you only want to rely on things that actually have a tradition and prove themselves? And I think a combination of both is really important, because lots of enterprise like startups, because they give additional layer of cybersecurity, which has not been tackled by attackers. So this is important. There's always a risk taking an immature product from a startup. So I guess it's a combination of many things: consulting, taking some risks, understanding who are the people that you are buying from. So from my own experience, the background that we have in Cynomi help us to get more customers that believe in us. So I guess knowing who are you buying from is really important.
So I actually kind of have a question about that. So from a CISO perspective, should these really be the people making decisions about products, not like overall strategy, but vendor products? Like, do they have any actual experience using these things?
And,
like, who
and
should
that's
really
why I'm
be
yelling no.
looking for to make recommendations? Because usually when you get to CISO level, they're so far removed from what's actually happening and how you operate on a day-to-day that, are these really the people that we're using, what is it, like the collective, to source these things from? Is that what we're doing?
Well, okay. It depends.
Unless the CISOs have a specific background, but most of them don't. They just have like a CISSP, project manager, something else.
It depends on the person. And that's the rub on a lot of this, Tiffany. In the case of folks that have come from out of a technical background, it's not like the technical side leaves you. You might leave it, but it doesn't leave you. So in a lot of cases, one of the things that I do is I have to do my research. And fortunately, when I looked at Cynomi is everything that I would look for to start with the organization that needs to build its own governance model within its organization. Unfortunately, what we suffer from in this country, if you look like you have a great resume, you can be a CISO of a major organization and be a straight up dullard.
Really? I can? I would love it. Help me.
No,
Yes, you
hey,
can,
hey,
Tiffany.
just
You
look at
can.
some of the breaches
Hey,
that we've
guys.
had over the last 5 years, and you can
Oh, come
tell
on, JP.
we don't
Someone
have
said
the
something.
smartest people doing it. You have organizations that still buy McAfee. McAfee ain't caught a
Hey,
virus since
JP.
'95.
Hey, JP,
okay?
hold on a second.
Hey, Tiffany, it's Derek Wamedy.
Hey, Derek.
Oh, my God.
Derek.
Hey, okay,
Hello,
Derek.
hello, everybody.
Hello.
I would like to get the original question asked again, and then I want to parlay that into what Tiffany asked. What was the original question you asked?
Wasn't that Chuka about the choosing a MSP, MSSP, or some differentiators, like something like that?
Yeah. So, in the world we live in, and you guys know this, it, people tend to go with what they're comfortable with, first of all. So no matter whether they lack the tools, the resources, or the proactiveness, or even the ability to address issues, if not the ones that caused it, um, they find a way to stay put because it's easier than making a shift to a different MSP because they feel like the work is not worth the move, right? What we found out is through Cynomi and asking the right questions and then being able to really do an apples to apples comparison versus length of how long you had that MSP or how long you've used that service creates what I call an aha moment in the eye of the technical person, either in the corporation or the MSP, that says, we're about to lose this customer if we don't get better at understanding their business, as opposed to giving them what they've always gotten and never having to stray beyond or even above the food chain. What I mean by the food chain is getting to the executive level who has to think strategically about how their technology is deployed. So that's one. So history does not mean that they're safe with who they have. As part of what we do with Cynomi is that we're able to articulate where those gaps are and how long those gaps have been in your industry, in your environment. And if you have an MSP or a technical leader, why have they let these particular gaps that have these types of vulnerabilities or ramifications continue when we can fix that fairly quickly? The second question, and why Cynomi is important, is we want to democratize an organization's ability to pick the right solution. So what do we mean by that? With Cynomi, if you're a 1-year CISO or you've been doing it for 30 years, what happens is it helps that initial CISO get a really clear understanding in a very methodical way about where an organization is, what they're lacking, and what they must have to grow. And because that creates a level of what I call level setting competency. Do you see what I'm saying? Uh, the person with the 1 year versus the person with the 13, or the person that's been there for 5 years and feels like they know it all and the company can't live with them. It helps us level set competency first. Once you level set that competency, then the question becomes, well, now that I've level set, what do I do with it? And that's where a lot of organizations, both MSPs and even ISC, even the virtual CISO or the CISO, has a problem because they know that they have limited funds to do things with. So with Cynomi and with with consultants like us come in and saying, here's what we found, here's solutions that can close the gap, and here are the solutions that can close the gap at a much more reasonable rate for your organization than you would have thought of, because we do spend the time research and development in finding best of breed technologies that can replace your old technologies, right? So instead of having to pay way much more for managing tons of data, we can tell you guys are wasting 13% on data management. Now, if we get rid of that, this gives you additional dollars to do and implement things that we found from Cynomi and from other areas within the organization to streamline your process. So I hope that answers the question from how do we displace an existing vendor, and how do we show value without having to be a brand or a name brand that's on the tip of everybody's tongue.
I mean, so does that mean that you guys have some type of standard that you use to compare one MSP to another, or what you currently have in place to what we actually have to offer? Is that how
Yeah, well, it's two things. One, we know we have certain things that MSPs would like, but either can't afford or their customers can't afford, right? So if you look at Cynomi, that's a very critical tool. But you'll go to an MSP and say, use this tool, and they go, man, I can't afford to raise my rate because everybody's so price sensitive that if I added this, I may lose this opportunity. But more importantly, what Cynomi allows us to do with MSPs is work with them to identify what gap do you have that your client has been asking to solve, that you have felt the inability to either make the investment because it's only being asked by 2 clients, or you felt like you don't have the professional service and ongoing support to make sure that request that once filled and completed can actually be taken advantage of and supported. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I know Chuka, did that answer it for you? I think it's Chuka.
Did that answer your question, my man?
Chuka?
Yeah.
Yes, that did. I'm sorry. I'm jumping between virtual this thing and yeah. Thank you. You guys took the time to answer really well. Thanks.
Absolutely, and keep in mind, Chuka, we're always around. So whatever you need, if you want to send it in writing, we're happy to take that call and get the folks from Cynomi on as well, because your question is one of the most important ones: is how do we displace what an organization considers a valued partner and have for the last X amount of years? The only way you can do that is to show that sometimes that MSP is resting on their laurels or haven't made the necessary investments to keep them at the level that the organization needs them to be at.
Thank you.
Anyway,
that's
my 2 cents, and I'll go back on mute.
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, that's good. All right, anyone else have any questions? Come on, y'all. They're here.
We also take question about weather.
All right, tell you what, if somebody has another question for us, we will come out and we will do a Cynomi demo with them or one of their clients that they're interested in converting. How about that?
Oh, and
one more
just for
question.
future references for Cynomi and Fluency's here. If y'all can talk more about the zero trust stuff with the NIST 800-207, it's great, because your government is about to they're throwing billions of dollars at this stuff. So when you're doing your presentations, let's guide it towards that, because then everyone else is going to follow, because it's going to be an easy thing to do. Just saying.
And if anybody needs to drop, I know it's past 3 o'clock, but if you can stay on, I think it's some good stuff that you probably need to hear right now. Go ahead, Derek.
No, her question is spot on. And that's why when you think of the relationships between the ecosystem that's on this call between Fluency and Cynomi, what we're trying to help both IT professionals as well as their leadership is you can't wait until the house is completely engulfed to call the fire department and then expect them to save the house. So what we're trying to do is make sure that you understand that there are new bleeding edge technology and tools that make things that are even 3 years old look antiquated. There's consolidation of tools, there's ability to be more proactive, and then there's a way to integrate those tools to provide a holistic approach to your secure environment. Now, keep in mind, the word I didn't say is your cybersecurity environment, because that's one piece of the puzzle. We are looking to make sure that you have a secure environment, that your security maturity model goes up, which impacts everything. Harder to get attacked, less cost to do it. And third, even less costs if you're looking for insurance that's related to security, such as cybersecurity and other required insurance policies that you have to have. Now, keep in mind, guys, if you're an MSP or you are 1099 and you're presenting to a corporation and you take on that business, you now own a certain level of liability, which is what she brought up earlier. And so you need to be aware that when you say yes to a client, your shop has to be just as tight as the shop that you're trying to protect. And these tools and resources and the ability and the research that I know that these two partners do is bar none one of the best I've seen, which can really help you get to the next level of preparedness so you don't get caught blindsided when these rules and regulations start going in place. And Tiffany, I hope that's what you're referring to and why that's such an important topic.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Now we can, now we can spend time on that because, like I said, whoever wants to do a demo with the two teams that we have on here, and I'll be happy to walk in that room with them, so I can, talk my nonsense. But you got a great team here. One question, if we think it's solid, we'll come out there and we'll help you present that to one of your clients, so you know that you have the full support of these two organizations behind you to ensure that you can tell the story and the value. Because for a lot of technical people, Tiffany's, it's translating technology to a story that creates value.
Yeah, and that's not with the technical people. That's for the folks who's spending the money.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to feel very connected to them.
Exactly. But the technical people need to have enough of that knowledge to present to the people that are spending the money and get them to spend it.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of be balanced, Tiffany, because you have to be astute enough to be able to understand the technology, but you also have to understand the business side to give a business case for why you need that technology. Because what you don't want, and Jim left, but what you don't want is tool sprawl. You don't want to just sit back and keep buying tools because Gartner says it's a good idea. You want to be able to look at the environment you're trying to purchase the tool for and say, hey, we have this problem. We need something that can fix it. Because what a lot of companies do, and one of the things that Derek hates, he hates shelfware. Okay. And what shelfware is, I've spent a few $1 million for QRadar, but I forgot I don't have anybody that's going to be able to look at QRadar.
Well, yeah. And I mean, something that you should definitely look at is the overlapping capabilities. If we can condense down the point products that you're using, that saves money right off the board. But from the technical side, guys, understand at the end of the day, it's about money. And if this doesn't fit into their business plan for money they're spending, they're not going to even talk about it. So I know we always think about risk and stuff, but we always have to think about risk and how much money it's going to cost them, because we have to bring it back down to their bottom line. And that's hard if you come from a technical space where you're like, well, the right thing to do, it's like, the right thing to do within these parameters that they've given us is a little different to get us to the point where we're doing the correct
But
thing.
also, that's one of the things you look for in a venue. I mean, because what you want out of your vendor, you want your vendor to be able to show you proof of value, because he's trying to sell you a product. If he can't show you that that product is going to cut time, which is money, in your environment, then you may want to look elsewhere. Because
how
most
often
vendors,
do we convince them that saving time, right? Resources, they're not spending so much time in manual processes, right? We're automating this. How often are we able to sell that to them as you're actually saving, if they cannot see it as a part of that, whatever the cost sheet that they have? That's the hardest thing to sell.
cloud.
Is that, hey, resources, we're saving time and money with resources, but what do we have them doing?
You know what, Tiffany?
This is how people go to the cloud, because it saved them on resources.
Well, hold on a second. Not necessarily. So I'll tackle your question directly, Tiffany. We help if we know that the customer has a budget of X, right? But we also do our due diligence, i.e. an assessment that says, okay, here's where your gaps are, and here's why your dollars spent in security or any other area when it comes to technology is high, because you could automate this, right? You could be more proactive. You could use AI. You can use tools that literally up-level your people's ability to do things in a more efficient way, right? So the answer to that question isn't, do we sell them that? Is we show them that. And how do we do that? The way I've always positioned a technology to a resident client, one who is not really sure they want to do it, is, well, let's do an assessment. We'll compare exactly what you have today versus what the tool that we're going to deploy would do for you. And the benefit of that is it becomes the evidence becomes self-evident, right? So every time I see a consultant or technical person trying to force a value prop without validation of that, you're not getting anywhere. You have to sit down and say, we're going to do an assessment from what you have versus what we think you need. And out of that assessment comes a very clear picture. Oh, if I do this in this area, 30% savings. If I do this in this area, 10% savings. And if you take that number and add it up, you go, here's what it is. And so part of what I tell everybody, never assume that the client understands your language, but they do understand a reviewed assessment, if that makes sense. They, it's black and white, right? If you keep going down the path you're going, here's what it means if you do it on Azure or AWS from just a data storage standpoint. If you do a hybrid environment, here's where you can manage some of the things that you hold near and dear, and all the rest you put up there. And by the way, you need to reduce your data by 13% because it's duplicates. So those things help drive faster understanding, a better conversation that's strategic, and it allows us to leverage the tools that you saw today in a way that validates the ability to save money, reduce the resource requirements, and create a more automated way of doing things. We've been saying this for how long? 20 years, right? But now we're getting better at using examples that people can't look at and say, well, let's think about it. It's real and it makes sense. And I've seen the Cynomi tool as well as others reflect that because they are cutting edge. They are able to take multiple devices or solutions and put together. They're able to absolutely extract the compliance and regulatory issues, regardless of what vertical you're in, that you have to meet. And that alone is not only cost savings, but it's business savings, right? It saves you, it will save your company. And so if anybody asks, why should I? The answer should be, you shouldn't. Let's do an assessment. After the assessment, you tell me if you want to keep going the path you're going, or if the words I've been telling you for the last 10 months are finally hitting you in the head. And that is the fastest way to move the conversation from I feel like I can add value to now I see where the value comes in. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that's nice. It's nice.
No.
It's
It's
nice.
nice. The
Nice.
word nice means it sounds good, but
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh no,
using
it sounds good. Let me see something. Yeah, I mean, so
What
okay.
is the
So we're
what
talking
is the
about this
what is the
external.
cost? You know, what is the cost of not taking action?
Exactly.
What is the cost of not taking action?
And when you say not taking action, I mean, so we have to get you in here to do your external validation, the scan thing, because
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, right, we already have our security stack in place. If we go ahead and bring out the vendors and tell them, hey, show us your value, they should be able to, right? And then we have to have Cynomi come in too. It's like, okay, we're going to show you that the vendors that you have this relationship 5, 10, 20 years, they're actually not providing the value. Is that what you guys were saying you kind of do? Because
Yeah,
I'm down for that.
Yes.
because right
if
Well,
now
they're
then,
that's
like
providing the
who?
one of the
value, you
Who?
wouldn't need
What's
it.
the use case?
Tiffany, that's one of the reasons why I sent you the documentation yesterday, because Cynomi is a partner of mine in the real world. That NDA I sent you is so you can actually see how that's going to work within your stack at work. Okay.
I don't even
And
necessarily need to see that. It's like, where's the use case specifically?
here, look,
Proving your
what
value.
use case do you want? What use case do you want? Most organizations right now cannot even tell you their own inventory. Okay.
Yeah, we know that.
But see, the problem is we know that. We're sitting back talking about zero trust, and I can't even get an inventory from an organization. Are you kidding me?
So is this what you're saying that their external scanner is going to do? It's going to give me an inventory?
Yeah.
No,
I
it's
think
not going to give you inventory.
No.
What it's going to
Good-
do is
good.
see gaps that you have in that environment and basically give you a pathway to fix those gaps.
Can you define one of the gaps, just real quick?
Let's say that you don't have policies. Okay.
Define policy. It means
Okay,
many
so-
things to us. Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, okay. So in most organizations, you probably should have a policy that says, hey, prior to allowing certain folks on the network, we actually have a procedure that makes sure that an organization, because this is what zero trust is about access, okay? And it's about you having access.
So
to the things
JP,
that you have.
can I interrupt
Yeah.
you for a second?
Go ahead.
So look, seriously, all you have to do is go back to the conversation earlier, right? When you were talking about NIST. When you talk about NIST, if you look up 853 and you start talking about the controls, the first control in every control family is, do you have a policy?
bingo.
Right. So that's the absolute first control. I can guarantee it. You can look it up now. I can guarantee it. It's the first one on every control. Do you have a policy for X? Do you have an acceptable use policy? Do you have a policy on mobile phones? Do you have a policy on external access? Right. So that's where those things can help you out. One of the things that I did want to add, Derek, thank you very much, my man. Wow, you are the voice of reason, sir. I mean, seriously, right? But
Thank you.
one of the things that I did want to add to you onto your valuable information, right? For Chuka, right? For for the very first question that was asked,
Mhm.
right? How do you know if vendor X is providing you value, right? Yes,
Yes.
you know, yes, partners like Cynomi can help you with that. Absolutely, right? But you have to do an assessment. You said it very clearly, Derek. You have to do an assessment. You have to assess whether or not they are providing you value. Now, how do you do that assessment? Listen, there are various methods and everything else, and you can get into all the boilerplate marketing and everything else of, you know, SWOT analysis and things like that. But it doesn't have to be that difficult.
Nope.
One of the things that I do when I evaluate products, for example, and JP knows this, I've shown him this. I make a very simple Excel spreadsheet. I list out my requirements. I say, how important is this requirement to me on a scale of 1 to 3?
Mhm.
1 being the highest priority, 3 being the lowest priority. And then I rank what I want to see in a tool. So if it's a SIM, you know, log collection, that's a 1, right? Reporting might be a 2, might be a 1, right? And then I go through and I evaluate every vendor that I have, and I rate them based on how they fulfill that need. It's an assessment. And
So,
honestly,
Leon, so it's still, I mean, I think what people need to understand, it's still going to be a manual process. Like you're still going to have to make decisions based on what's best for your business, you know, whatever it
yeah,
is.
absolutely. Absolutely, right? When we start
Okay.
talking, you know, and that goes into another conversation, Tiffany, right? When you start talking about machine learning and AI and everything else, right? You are never going to replace us. You are never.
Good. I feel that way. I like to tell people this. We're gainfully employed every time something happens because we're like usually the final source of truth.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm not gonna lie,
That's what
I
it boils
dance a
down to.
jig every time I read a breach report because I know that's another 5 years I can do this mess. As much as I hate it,
From the house
that's
at
another
that,
5
guys.
years of guaranteed work.
Yeah. Hey, Leon, and Tiff, your point is so valid. And that the reoccurring ability for us to have jobs is one thing. What I liked about your assessment process that you go through, I'm way dumber than you are. So here's what I typically do. I typically say, what is your vendor providing right now? Your MSP vendor providing you right now? What do you deem as critical and what do you deem as secondary? When they give you sort of that mantra, then you say, where have you been having the most issues, or where would you like to see those gaps closed? That way, they immediately are the one that's telling you the benefit of the vendor, and at the same time telling you where their vendor's falling flat on their face. And so when they say, here's where we wish the vendor would do this, this, and this, because we read somewhere or the CEO read on a plane and has forced us to put in, but they don't do that. So we go, okay, why don't we just do an assessment on where you are with those requested tools that you feel that your vendor is short on? Two things happens there psychologically. One, the control goes back to the client because they know their environment, they know their MSP and how they work. And then the assessment you do is based on the request from the vendor, so you can make that specific assessment valuable. And once they get the results of that assessment and they realize, yeah, I'm right, they fell short, instead of a gut feel, they're short. Then you go, well, if they're short here, are you sure that on the critical things that they really have it in place? And they're going, we may want to look at that. Then you do an assessment on the critical areas that they thought that the vendor had in place. What they soon find out is there's a gap there. And then your solution is, because this is critical, we're going to make it priority 1 and priority 2. Because this is secondary but needed, that's priority 3 and 4. And here's the roadmap that we're going to put in place along with the tools to fix what your vendor does not have in place right now. So basically, it's me taking the road that I have no idea what motivates the client. Let them tell me, and then I'll do an assessment against that. And then I'll put together a program based on the knowledge that I'm gaining from the client. A lot of salespeople, and I've trained a lot of them over the years, walk in with a script, or because they only have one widget, but blow everything up by saying everything you have sucks, it's wrong, you shouldn't have, you better have used this or that, because they only have a widget. But if you know that you have the arsenal of Cynomi, Quantum Symphony, and others behind you, you can simply ask, where do you feel like your vendor is letting you down? And do you have an example of that? Why don't we go ahead and just do an assessment around that particular issue? If we can solve that problem, then maybe we also need to look at the critical issues that your vendor is providing, because what we typically see is that if this small issue or this small application or process is not working, it's an indication that the bigger things are also not being taken care of at the level that they need to be. So you're not selling, you're literally listening and implementing assessment based on where the user believes that they have shortfalls, not where you tell them they have shortfalls. Does that help?
No,
Very
it,
much.
it does.
Oh, yeah.
It does. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. It does. And the only other thing I wanted to say, to your point, Derek, you know, one of the soft skills, whatever you want to say, that I think that every cybersecurity professional needs nowadays is salesmanship, right? You have to tell a story. You have to sell things to the board, right? And I think that that's where your company comes in, the group of partners that you guys have, right? Because some people just don't have that skill set, right? They don't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so if you use tools like Cynomi and others, then you can tell the story, you can do that assessment and tell the story, and then you don't have to sell anything because it's in black and white. It's there for everybody to see.
Yep.
You either are or you're not doing this.
Bingo.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
this story thing, I've been hearing it for years now when it comes to, I guess, not even just selling something externally, but internally to, to internal partners. Do y'all know where it came from, this whole story thing? Because it actually bothers the crap out of me, because I always think it's, full of lies and fake and fiction when we talk about stories.
Well,
This seems to be the language people use when we're selling these security tools. Do y'all know where it came from?
It
yes.
came from way back when, in the early 2000s and the late 90s, when organizations would go into a company, they would basically storyboard on how their tool is the greatest widget out there.
So lies.
Why you
No.
need to be, no, not lies. I mean,
Oh, my
basically,
bad.
No, not lies. Marketing.
Yeah.
So Tiffany, here's what I'm hearing. You hate the word story because you believe intrinsically that it's a ruse to get somebody to do something.
Yes, but
But hold on.
I'm on this side of the industry. It's like, how, as from a person who comes from a technical background, even before I
Yes.
got into this, I like very straightforward things. I like, here are your choices, A and B, make the choice, right? Here's vendor A, here's vendor B. This is what they do. But I understand that to sell or to, I guess, just to bring people along to what we're doing from a security perspective, we do have to create these stories. But as a person who doesn't necessarily have that kind of mind, do y'all have any recommendations to get us better at creating these stories?
Sure.
Yeah.
Talk to people like you would be talking to anybody else. I think people think that when people walk into an office, somehow they leave their personality and their brain outside, and they become this amorphous, monolith of a corporation. That never works. So when I tell a story, the story is simply to help do three things. One is I understand what you've told me, and I'm painting a picture of what the impact is and it's going to be if you don't make changes. And when they say, yep, you're right, that's what's going to happen. And then part of the story becomes, so in this story, if you know you're going to get fired in 5 months unless you make these changes, what are you going to do to take the other path? And treat them as humans beings. And I'll give you an example. I went to go get my car worked on, and all I want to do is an oil change, and I thought I needed a couple more things. The person who took care of me told a story, and the story was, Derek, the oil change we can do right now, even though you don't need it, because I'm a car fanatic and I like to keep things the way they are. The other three things you mentioned, here's why I wouldn't do those now. They're perfect. They're running great. You don't need to spend that kind of money at this time. There'll be a time when you can do three things at once, cost you roughly the same, instead of having us do it and then do those two other jobs and triple your cost. Now, if he didn't tell me that story, I'd have went, man, just fix what I told you to fix and fix all three. And then 6 months later, I'm like, oh my gosh, the story stuck with me and I screwed myself financially. So a story is there to do three things. Make sure that you understand their pain and you're able to reflect that understanding in a way that's not hostile, or that's not where you're coming off as the know-it-all, which everybody thinks I come across as the know-it-all, which I don't, but I'll leave that alone. And then secondly, you're able to create a connection with that individual, because you're not trying to force them into a solution. You're just trying to tell them, well, if this is all you're trying to work on, let's show you how to work on that and get it done. The other two or the three things will come when the time is right, and we're here for you. So storytelling isn't lying. Storytelling is being able to ask questions, repeat it, and then use that to show what could be, both in terms of positive or negative. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense, Derek, and thank you for sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Hey, good to see you, man. How are you?
Hi, good. I just graduated from Texas Tech in December, and I'm trying to get a job in cybersecurity as an analyst or an entry-level technical role. And I actually really appreciate your whole speech, or your what you're talking about, that you need a story and that you need the people skills and not just the technical skills, because my dream job is CISO. I know that to be a CISO, I've done the research, you need both. You need to be able to understand things at a technical level, but you also need to be able to explain why you need the money to the board or to the executives. And so it really bothered me this morning. I had an interview, and the interviewer kept drilling into me. I need you to prove to me that you are a purely technical person and not a people person. And because he said, if he gave me the analogy, he said, I agree that, he said, I know that skills can be taught and you can learn, and you just need to give someone a chance. But he said, I need you to prove to me, that he gave me the analogy, that you're a carpenter and you don't, and you have what it takes and you can troubleshoot. But I mean, I kind of understood what he was saying, but it bothered me that he said I needed to be purely technical.
Dante, what was the position that you applied for?
It was for, let me see, 1 second.
And so you know, Dante, I got your email and I'm forwarding it to our
Okay.
Human Resources Department.
Thank you. It was for an associate security operations analyst.
Okay, so you do have to do some communication. I'll tell you right now. There's no such thing as a silo when it comes to working in a technology environment that impacts the rest of the business. No such thing. If somebody tells you all I'm looking for is your technical acumen and you've proved it, and they don't want you to have the capability to actually translate your value, then what happens, and I don't know this company, but what happens is they take your skill sets, you do what they need to do, and then they're the ones that tell the story and get a promotion or get something out of it. I want you to
And
have
you
the
stay exactly
confidence.
where you are.
Yep. I want you to have the confidence and the ability not only to be technical, but to have the confidence to share what that technical acumen brings to the business.
Thank you.
What's unfortunate is a lot of managers that are afraid of the next generation of tools, people, you name it, is that they've played the old game that I can get somebody to do all the work. And as long as I put my name on something that the CEO or CISO believes is a key initiative, I'm going to move up the food chain while somebody else keeps doing all the hard work. I don't believe in that at all, and neither should you. Any organization that says, I just want you technical, and you've already proved you're technical, and then they want you to be quiet, man, leave the job. Because if once you reach a level of competence, but you want to stay with that job and you follow that thought process, it's hard to get yourself out of being considered just a technical guy that doesn't know how to communicate.
And Dante,
I'm glad that
you're a recent graduate.
Yes, I just graduated in December.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
That feeling you had about that questioning, yeah, it was stupid. Like, I've interviewed a lot of different people, and you don't just say, hey, I want to know your technical this. You just ask them questions.
He told me, he kept telling me he wanted me to prove to him that I was the right fit for the team, and that he told me, okay, so tell me about what you like and describe it in pure technical details. He told me what laptop are you using right now? Tell me all the specs of it.
What if I told him I like ice cream? How am I going to say that in a technical?
Yeah, Leon had a whole great LinkedIn post about this.
If you want me to be part of the team, how am I supposed to communicate with the team if all I'm doing is technical stuff? Are you saying that the team, I send them an email saying, look at what I accomplished today, and that endears you to the team? Guys, the dumbest thing that we have allowed technology to force us to do is quit acting and being human beings in an environment. We need to make sure that we are validating our value with the way that we approach and address issues in a technical way. That's it.
So Dante, did you have any kind of practice with the interview process? You know, because you're a graduate.
I've gone through a lot of interviews, actually.
And this is the one sort of
these two this week have kind of thrown me off a bit. But most of my interviews have been great. They haven't been like this at all. But the two interviews that I had this week really bothered me.
Okay. That one would bother me. And let me explain to you why. Being technical only gets you so far. Okay. Because when you want to move to management, nobody's going to look at your technical skills.
Oh my God.
People are going to ask you flat out.
You want to manage people or technologies? What are we talking about?
People. When you move up to management, you have to manage people. Okay.
First of all, I'll never do that, guys.
Able to get along with people, whether or not you like them or not. That's one problem. But with technology changes every 3 months. Okay.
It doesn't. Okay. No, it doesn't.
No, it does.
It's the same.
It does.
It is the same. People put a new GUI on top of it. But the internet works the same way. Connections work the same way. A server is a server, a firewall, and a router is a router. They will tell you this to scare you.
No,
Understand how things work on a
part of
base
what you're
level.
hold on,
And these
Tiffany.
new
Part of what you're
GUIs,
saying is true.
they're just new GUIs.
No,
Oh,
part
my
of what you're saying
That
is
grinds
true.
my gears, JP. My bad.
I understand what you're saying, but part of what you're saying is true. Part of it is not true.
Damn.
Technology
I
changes
had to
on a
pick up
regular
my
basis.
phone, Tiffany. You got me laughing so hard. Sorry.
Because one of the things that people forget, you got a new OS that comes out. Okay. Yes, the GUI
It's not
may
brand new.
but the engine,
It's
hold
the
on. But
same
the engine-
baseline.
no, the engine underneath is different. Okay. When I upgrade AWS, there are different little tools that are added into AWS.
Yeah, but the
If I-
VMs are the same. It's the storage is the same. The processors are the same. They add little new services on top of that stuff, but it's still the same
Exactly.
VMs we were
Guess
using
what?
20
That
years
means
ago.
that technology has changed. Okay.
They selling it different.
Things you need to do, Dante. Don't listen to
My
Tiffany.
bad. Don't listen
The
to me,
thing that you
Dante,
need
but
to
listen
do-
to me, Dante, because I'm closer to the ground. I just
Do the
started
thing-
8 years ago. JP been doing this for 20, 30 fucking years. Excuse me. I'm closer to the ground than JP is.
No, actually, no, you're not. Because see, what
I
I still
am.
do, I still read everything. Okay, just because I'm that type of a-hole, and I like to know things. I don't like for somebody to tell me, and I don't already know. Okay, one of the things that you do for yourself, Dante, yes, once you get in an environment, you understand their technology, but you don't want to be an expert in their technology because you'll kill your career because you're an expert of some trash that's 20 years ago. And then when you need to get a job to go elsewhere, you can't do it because you can't talk about the technology that is current in an organization.
We'll fight you on that one, man. I can talk to you about the current technology because I understand how it works, because it's still working on old technology. No matter what these people tell you, it still works the same way.
Conceptualizing
The
it,
same
it works.
protocols. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ron. My bad.
No,
Go ahead.
the concept might be the same.
Yeah.
The implementation, the underlying technology, the use of, come on, how many lines of programming? It's not just about UI.
Is this
UX.
new programming, or are we just not pulling from GitHub and all these other open source things? They're doing essentially the same thing, but we can add our own little sauce on top of it to make it better, right? To make it more secure, to make it more user-friendly. But for it to work, all these SaaS applications, they have to work over the internet.
That's
They
true,
have
but you still have to know the attributes of how said technology works to be able to regurgitate it to show an organization that
I'm
you know what you're
regurgitating
talking
it. I
about.
don't know how this stuff works.
So you see where her technical acumen is, right? Don't listen to her.
Hey, I'm all over a whole new thing. Listen to her.
The Z generation. Go ahead, JP.
Go ahead, y'all. I'm just fucking around. I'm joking. I'm kidding. Y'all go ahead. I'll be quiet. Go ahead, JP.
No. What all I'm trying to say is, yes, you want to be good at the technology in your job, but keep one eye looking forward to what is changing. Because as these things change, you have compliance concerns that change and say, hey, guess what? If you have Windows 8 in your environment, you better go to 10 because of X, Y, and Z.
Is that compliance, or is it your vendor saying, hey guys, we're no longer going to support that, so you can move along, or you're not going to be supported unless your contract is big enough? And then all of these companies will make sure that whatever you're doing, whether it's vulnerable or not, it still works with what they're using.
And I got what you're saying. And in some cases, you're absolutely right. But okay, she's going to get pissed, but I'm going to just go ahead and say it. This zero trust is BS. And here's why. Zero trust is a marketing term.
Oh no.
Marketing term that
I got a whole new job on this, y'all.
No, JP.
It is a marketing term.
JP, hold on, man. You're about to take us. This is Alice in Wonderland moment. And unless I have an alcoholic beverage in my hand, we're going real down a rabbit hole. Here's what
at this point, everybody know they can leave when they want to.
But here's I may just go get myself a beverage. So what she's trying to say, and what somebody who's new and being asked really absurd questions is part and parcel of the issue within our industry. There's certain things that are consistent. Yes, you need the ability to connect via the internet. you need the data center, you need certain things. But the way that some of those tools that have been used historically have dramatically changed to make it a lot more efficient, effective, and resilient. So a Sonomi type of a solution, you can say, well, it still uses the same pipes and does all these things. But the fact that it decreases your need to hire and I'm going to use myself, to hire um, a plumber to come in and do stuff when you literally have a Sonomi tool that says, turn on your kitchen faucet. If that's not working, there's three things that you should check before you go out and call a plumber and spend a lot of money. And you check those three things, lo and behold, they work, you're good to go, you're there. So the fact that a lot of organizations, especially in the healthcare space and even in financial services space, they've historically built homegrown solutions that can't be touched with modern or optimized technology. Their issue now becomes, how do I integrate best of breed services like machine learning, AI, etc., while still leveraging our quote unquote IP? Again, this is from the customer's vantage point, not from our vantage point. We cannot put ourselves in the position of the client until that client tells us what position they want us to be in. And so we can sit here and talk back and forth about technologies being the same, technologies changing. What really matters is the client's interpretation of whether the technology hasn't changed in 20 years, so we're not, or technology is moving so fast, and here's where our increase in um, keeping up with our clients' request is starting to impact us financially. So these very important, what I call, and forgive me for using this language, these very important, almost ancillary conversations that impact us and how we feel about technology is great, but it's for us. When we're in front of a client, we have to remove our blinders and look at it specifically from a client viewpoint. If they have the same mindset as the person that was trying to hire, um, and I forgot his name, the individual, shame on that company. If they have a mindset that Dante, thank you, Dante. My fault. If they have a mindset that they really want to become a leading edge organization with the right up to date tools and resources, that when they go to Windows 11, there are some changes. In fact, a couple of folks try to go from Windows 10 to Windows 11 with the mindset that, well, can't be that big of a difference, and they quickly went back to 10 because they realized, oh my gosh, there are a lot of changes. They're impacting me. They may be small, but the impact altogether is huge for me not to migrate. So I guess what I'm trying to say, Tiffany, is you're absolutely right that um, the way you build a house is the same as it was yesterday. The question becomes, how do you build that house more efficiently, more effectively, and to give you what you need without you spending more money on heating, plumbing, and other things? That's where these new technologies, or what you would call new ways of building the building, come into play. Using it. But what if that AC unit, instead of blowing to every single house, every room of the house, it can sense when that room is empty and not blow any air, and only blow air where people are. Now, somebody can say, well, that's just another AC, and I can go out and do like they do in Europe and put one in each and every room and turn that on manually. But what if your butt just had a family load of people in every room, and now you've got to go in and check everything and turn it off, when a system can say, there's no one in this room, I'm shutting that off on your behalf to save you the effort. So keep in mind, there are technologies to make the building of the house much more efficient, and the way that you interact with that house much more pleasing and has efficacy. And that's a word that we really need to keep in mind. The efficacy of what you provide to a client is based on what the client perceives as valuable, not what you think is valuable. And a lot of people make the mistake of saying, I just saw a demo, it's fantastic. I don't care what you're about to tell me, you need to install this in your environment. And you will get shut down very quickly. You have to take that demo, you have to take that knowledge, ask the question of what's important to you. And if that particular technology makes sense, that's when you bring it up. And that, more importantly, that's when the client knows you're listening to them and not simply trying to make a sell. So to your point of telling stories, the stories there to validate that you're listening, that you're providing the right solution, and that you're showing what the outcome could be with efficacy associated with it from a technology standpoint. A house is going to be a house, but what you as the architect to solve a client's problem whose electric bill is up to 500, and you can take it down to 250 because you've been able to build a better widget within the house, you'll be listened to all day long. And there's my soapbox for the day before I start drinking. But I hope that helps
Derek.
puts it. But I hope that helps puts it in perspective, guys. People don't care what you know. What they care about is you asking them the right questions and solving their problem. That's it.
Thank you. You're so
I
right.
really agree with that.
You're completely right. And I maybe I'll add one more thing. And this is one question that you can ask any CISO or any CIO, and he probably has no idea what the answer will be. And that question is, how many new applications one of your employees within the company downloaded or used today for the past 4 hours? Most of those people have no idea how many new applications introduced into an environment and exposed their organization to new attack vectors. Cybersecurity has so many layers and so many and introduce so much complexity into the organization frameworks. It's almost impossible to being able to address every single one of those applications as part of the entire policy. And you mentioned assessments. And one question that I had always in mind, and I have no answer for that, is what's the right number of assessments that any organization should do throughout the year to make sure that they fully understand where they are in the timeline and the progress of applications, exposure, awareness, etc.
Do you want me to provide an answer to that? Or I'd love to hear somebody else.
Yeah,
No,
go
I'd
ahead,
like
Derek. What do you think
all
the
right.
answer is? 'Cause I'm going to have an answer and it may be based on yours. Go ahead.
Okay. The answer is it all depends on the client. Period. If we come in and say you need 6 assessments to do this, in their mind, they're like, why? What happens when you solve one problem is that you get the right to be told or to be brought into the inner circle to say, I've got another problem. Can you do an assessment on that and make sure we're doing it right? I got another problem. Can you? So it all determines on what is their priority. Have you solved it? Did your assessment create a value prop? and solve that. Once it does, it opens the doors to more. That's how I see that. So there's no hard and fast rule. If I was to tell my salespeople when they go into a land and expand mode, well, once you land with an assessment, I'm expecting 6 more out of this. Why would I say 6? Because I've got 6 tools I need to sell. Versus do these tools actually matter to the client, right? I just know I got to sell 6 tools.
Sarah, what I would say is take it beyond the tools, and because I'm following Zero Trust, obviously, think about it as a micro perimeter. Yeah, we have 6 tools which can apply to any of your micro perimeters or protect surfaces that you have defined as a company, right?
Yes.
So we are doing an assessment for just a very small part of it, like I like to say micro perimeters or protect surfaces, because that's the language they're using. And I find something from there, we're going to use the same tool to do the assessment for your. You may not know what I'm talking about, but this is what we're bringing to you, right? So we're bringing to you a format to test these different, again, micro perimeters with Zero Trust, your protect surfaces. And you can apply this whether you're talking about on the cloud, endpoint, or on-prem, or anything else like that. Like, yeah, I agree with you. That's right. It depends on the customer.
Yeah, because if you tell them you're going to do 3 assessments this year with us, and then the question in their minds become, how do you know it's only 3 assessments? And they'll nod their head and they'll say yes. But the truth is their trust has just diminished because you're not focused on what they need. You're focused on the number of tools you need to sell or provide and prove value for. The reason why we've done the homework we do with Cynomi and with others is we know the value. If we ask somebody what the right situation is and how they want to deploy and use it and how many assessments they want, those words are going to come out of their mouth. And guess what? That goes into the statement of work. It's not Derek said, it's you told me that you're looking at doing 20 assessments this year focused on these areas. Here is how we believe you should start. That's the value play that you bring. So that is, again, the customer. And if you put a customer in a position where, unless it's one-on-one and you ask them how many applications that they know about and they don't have the right answer, they'll shut you down for 2 reasons. 1, you're making them feel uncomfortable. And 2, they should know that. And if they don't, and a senior leader within the organization who wants their job is going to repeat, hey man, you didn't even know how many applications we have. So the way that I typically would ask that question, because bandwidth is a good indication of shadow IT. How much is your bandwidth increased per business unit over the course of the last year? And they can answer that. And you goes, okay, so you're a company with 3 business units with only 400 employees, blah, blah, blah. Your bandwidth, based on what I understand you have, you claim you have 5 applications, should be right around this, unless there's just a data hog application that we're just not aware of. Why don't we look at your bandwidth to see how many applications are constantly on within
Derek,
your
why
environment?
are you trying to kill my Netflix watching? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? We like to watch Netflix in the middle of the day.
All I'm telling you is the way you position is the way that gets you better deals. And the way that you get better deals is you understand that most people don't have an answer. So you ask them a question that they can get an answer for. And the best question to ask right off the bat is, have you seen increase in your pricing for bandwidth? And yes. Do you know why? Well, we just deployed this. Is there anything else you deployed? No. Okay, so by deploying one more app, your bandwidth has exploded. Because what you're really trying to do is say that you have shadow IT and you have applications that are being deployed without your knowledge. But instead of saying that, I know that you know how much your cost for bandwidth is because you're getting beat over the head for bandwidth costs going up. And because of that, then we will do an assessment around your bandwidth and associated applications. And through that comes, oh my gosh, you guys are running 50 apps instead of the 5 you thought. So instead of it looking like I'm doing my job wrong, now I know how to, quote unquote, reduce my bandwidth cost, save some money, and thanks to these guys, reappropriate those funds in the right way and put in a zero trust or a process for not allowing shadow IT applications to be implemented into our environment. And by the way, we can help you write that policy.
Yeah. And like for anyone who hasn't, I guess, been in this kind of position, he started off with saying we ask questions. Like if you've noticed when new leadership's hired, they usually start dictating things. Oh, this is what I think we should do. And the most important part of this is in the question, what is it that you think you're missing? What is it that, you know, is going on? Because these people understand their network better than we do, or what they think. Now, that doesn't mean that we go by what they say. It just makes them feel heard and part of the process. It's something easier to sell. Start out with questions. That's right, Derek, right? Start asking them
That's you ask questions, because the more questions you ask, the more you realize you don't know shit. And that's a technical term. And the more you're comfortable with the lack of not having the knowledge, gives you the ability and the flexibility to say, that's a good point, let me get back with you, which continues the dialogue based on trust and transparency versus you tap dancing thinking that they don't realize that you're lying to them in front of their face. So literally the more human questions you ask that you know they can address, the better. And if they don't know, or if you don't know, just say, I don't know. But if I come back to you and we address this, how do you want to move forward? That helps you understand how serious they are. That helps you understand that you've made a connection. And that helps you close a deal and reach out to resources that can help create that solution and make it a very effective deployment. And once you do that, back to your original question, how many assessments would I get? They begin to grow exponentially.
And what you don't want to miss out on either, in terms of assessments, you also have gap analysis, where you sit back and you've done maybe 1 or 2 assessments. Now you have to sit back and say, well, how do I get from point A to point B? And what is it going to take for me to get to that point?
Absolutely. Well, guys, I've got a job. I've given Tiffany a headache. So
oh, no, you haven't, Derek. I'm delighted. JP's usually in my face. So no, this is wonderful.
Absolutely. And
this is great, y'all.
And as you know, JP and I are always here, even to have one-on-one conversations or to talk to you guys about how to optimize how you position yourself to sell more effectively. And knowing that we with Cynomi and others have resources and solutions and tools that will help you become that much more effective and create that efficacy that every client's looking for when they try you out for the first time. And with that said, good night, everybody.
Thank you so much,
and
Derek.
Looking forward to the next one.
See you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ron. Go to bed.
All right, see?
Dante, I'll hit you up on LinkedIn. I'll introduce you to a friend of mine that is a recruiter.
All right.
And I'll give you some other businesses to look at and see if there's anything there you like.
All right, thank you.
Is there anything anybody else needs from me before I drop? Mark, I do not have your number, but I can pull it off of an old sheet. Leon, I got your number off of an old sheet too.
Hey, JP, you're going to be on the meeting tomorrow, right? Because there's a young man, he's interested in cybersecurity. So, yeah.
Okay, good. We'll push
make
that.
the introduction. You can tell him.
Listen. why y'all trying to help all these people get into cybersecurity? They're all gonna
Hey,
end up
Leon.
they're all gonna end up looking like us. No hair.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I look great with no hair. What are
I
you
mean,
talking about, Leon?
I'm just
I
saying that.
am blessed with a lot of thick
Hey,
hair.
listen.
I have
Did
hair.
I get my mohawk?
I happen to think that I look pretty sexy with no hair and my long
Baby.
hair too. Okay.
I am
Beautiful
blessed with a
eyes.
lot of thick
Beautiful
hair.
eyes. All of that.
I'm just saying, you know, you gotta tell these young people that, you know, you don't know what you're signing up for.
I shaved my
baby,
head.
Dante,
Yes.
sign up for it.
Yes.
Sign up for it. Okay?
I
just
Sign up
definitely
for it.
want
I
to sign up
did.
for it. I'm
I'm
just
just
waiting
trying
for
to- I'm
someone to
just
give
Don't
me a
listen to
chance.
them.
I'm
I'm
just
just
trying to
waiting
help.
for
Don't
someone to
listen
give
to
me a
them.
chance.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to help you out,
Yes.
Dante.
Your
I'm just
first
trying to let
job
you
is
know
gonna
what
be
you're
the
in for.
hardest. After
That's
that,
all.
whatever you make up, it'll be up to you. You ain't gotta be bald and fat and a bunch of other shit. It's great. I'm telling
Okay.
you, my life. I mean, I had a pretty good life before, but now it is wonderful. This is
Come
a
on.
great industry. You know why they trying to keep us out of this? Because they know it's wonderful. What you doing, Leon? Leon, we like each other.
Come on, Tiffany. You know that was
Leon.
sarcasm. Why are you?
Well, the
why you
first
messing with
3
me?
years are shit. The first 3 years are awful, guys. 3 to 5, however you want to do it, it is pretty bad. But look at us
I
now.
like a
I
challenge.
have a great life. Okay, Dante, this is perfect. Okay, that link I sent you, definitely take a look at it. I'm gonna connect you with Keisha.
Okay.
Baby, we got you.
We
This
got
is a
you.
wonderful industry because we do need a new way of thinking, right? Because we're modernizing, we're moving forward, things are more dynamic. We need to get as many of these young people in here as possible. My eyesight
Right.
is getting bad. I'm getting old. We need these people, and we got to train them right.
I'm pretty
You know,
sure I might be
Listen,
blinder than you already.
listen, Tiffany, I want as many of them as I can get to come in because everybody's trying to get into cybersecurity. I'm trying to get the hell out.
You and me both.
Okay.
I can't stand this industry. I hate
I can't
going
wait till
into
we meet in person again, y'all. This is so
I
much
hate going
fun.
into a client's
Hey, we got-
office
hey,
and
hey,
their
we gotta
people.
See,
talk about this
I
over
like
the
that it's
summer.
virtual because I can come. I'm in Lubbock. There's no cybersecurity IT organizations in Lubbock. There's nothing.
Well, first thing we got to do is get you out of Lubbock because there is nothing in Lubbock. Okay.
Well, I need a job to get
Yeah,
out of
love
Lubbock.
it.
I need a job to
Talent
get out of Lubbock. I'm not going to move to Dallas without a job.
No, and I'm with you.
Oh, baby,
That's why
you're
we're
right.
working with you.
That's legit. Okay. But we might be able to find something in the meantime and love it. There's a whole university out there. What are we doing? We don't have connections like that. But anyway, no, get you out of Lubbock to Texas or California.
No, I don't
Dallas
want to
or
go to California.
My bad. San
I don't want to
Francisco.
go to California.
We are not
Why
sending
not?
California.
That's why their internships are.
Look, he does not need to be in
the
California paying
internships are
13%
pursued in
tax.
California. It depends on how you go over there. It's fine. Okay, fine.
No.
Don't go to Cali. Where do you want to go?
If he can have a remote
You want to stay here
position,
in
yes.
Texas?
My goal is
Wait a
that
minute,
yes, I
JP.
want to stay in Texas. I'm open to relocating anywhere in Texas, but my dream is Dallas,
Austin?
DFW.
Okay.
Oh, DFW, not even Austin or San Antonio? Okay. Yeah, we can get you here in DFW for sure. For sure. Yes, got it.
Anybody else looking for work?
Yes.
We might as well hit everybody all at once.
Yes. And come tomorrow, guys. We'll have even more people. Okay, so what did we learn today, y'all? Zero trust doesn't exist.
No, I didn't say it doesn't exist. I said it's BS.
Everybody's security posture is crap. This is a terrible industry to get in. You're going to lose all your hair.
Yeah.
JP, just for Tiffany's sake, okay? All right, since she is a zero trust architect, okay?
They made it up.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, it is a buzzword. Yes, it is a marketing scheme. The concept is solid. The implementation, however,
solid.
Trash.
Is where it goes sideways.
Whoa. Hey, now. Yeah, you're right, but we can create a standard where it'll work like at least half the time.
No, it doesn't. As long as you're connected to the internet, there's no such thing as zero trust. So
we're not actually trying to get there. We're just trying to be better than we are today.
Hold on. And when I tell an organization, well, Only put the people that need to be on the internet onto the internet and give them access. Who doesn't need to be on the internet? And then if you take off the executive, the first call you're going to get, my internet's not working. Why is it I can't go out and go look on the internet? Because you don't need to be on the internet. You're the last person needs to be on the internet. I just got finished reading to you about a breach, and it said what? Most of the organizations that get breached is because the individual opens up the malware.
Yeah, that's fine, right? So zero trust is gonna get the point. Yeah, we know people are opening stuff. We know that we have the attackers and the adversaries, they're in there. But we just need to be able to alert and block it once we realize that they're there and they're trying to make moves that they can't. But that means we have to have, again, this micro perimeter around certain things, like your applications, like your data, like your identity, so that we know
Leon, when you in the military,
we're gonna get better. No,
wait a minute, Leon, when you were in the military and you talked about zero trust, did it or did it not go along with the fact that the military's network didn't touch the internet?
That doesn't matter.
You can talk about
what it is.
JP, you're absolutely correct. Yes. When you're in the military and when you're talking about the classified networks, that's what you say. That's zero trust because it doesn't touch the internet. Absolutely correct. Yes. But I mean, listen, we can debate this all day and everything else. Like I said, it's all about the implementation. I get the concept. I get the idea. It's all about the implementation. Yes, absolutely 100%. The only real way to get to zero trust is to basically lock down your firewalls and everything else, and you only let out business purpose things, and you audit your firewalls every day to make sure that nothing has changed and everything.
So they're practically unusable.
Okay, but
we can't use.
But is it going to get there? No, it's not. The problem is that like everything else in this industry, we take a word and we take it to the nth degree. We take it somewhere where it doesn't need to be. So zero trust, probably the wrong word to use. Maybe a trust but verify, maybe that's the better phrase to use. You know, I don't know.
Liam, I'm actually okay with zero trust because that whole thing is even within your quote unquote trusted, your internal network, you're not trusted. So we don't trust you no matter where you're connecting from, whether it's internal.
Yeah, and I get that. Like I said, the concept is solid, but how are you doing that? How are you not trusting me being on your corporate network as an authorized user?
Hi, guys.
Two companies. It's a journey. We're never going to get there. That's it.
So,
right.
The only thing else I'm going to say is real quick. If
all those people on that cycle list.
Hey, real quick, if Dante's still on the phone, if he's still on here, Dante, you come into cybersecurity. Look, I was just talking trash before. Okay.
I know.
Seriously, before Tiffany and JP start jumping on me, I love this industry. I'm a geek by nature.
Oh, I hate it.
I love this industry. I love figuring out problems. Okay.
No,
Hi, guys.
It's the only thing my old tail know how to do.
Wait, hold on, JP. Somebody said, who said something?
No,
Somebody else. You can talk.
No, my name is Anwar. This is my first day to join this event. I'm a student with the cybersecurity, and it's fun. I mean, a lot of learn. But I think I was very interested about the zero trust Tiffany was mentioning, and Leon was saying. As a student, I think I see mostly from the human perspective than the network side. Don't trust human, not I think a network, because a network, I think the numbers are manageable, but human, you cannot, I think, you cannot really trust. I think it's a human side of it, zero trust more.
Well, you know, it actually goes beyond that. It's not just human, you're right, the user. It's also
I'm a student. I'm not in the cybersecurity field. I'm learning, but that's just what.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. Let me find you something real quick.
Right?
So you
it's
can take a look
resources.
at this.
Right. So think about this. So we're not the only ones who are connecting to, applications and stuff. There are resources like on the back end that verifies your identity, or that's connected to a database, or it has to connect to some other server. And those are actually users or resources or entities that also have, that we can't trust, right? Just because it made this connection at one point to, grab this data doesn't mean that that connection is still valid, because we're from a different type of network or VPN or something like that. So what Zero Trust does is we need to think about, we don't trust anything, not a person, not a device, not a resource, not a service, until it has been validated. But that validation point has to be the ultimate trust point, which is validated by people. So as a student, where we're going to is, it's just not users, it's devices, it's resources, it's servers that we're not trusting. Yeah. Oh, my bad. Go ahead. Because I'm creating these things.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, JP, make sure you give everybody 3 CPEs for this at least.
Yeah.
And
I think we should get 6.
Yeah, I know.
I know. I feel like I've been.
Tiffany, we need to see each other live again real soon so that we can share a Temptress or a Velvet Hammer or something like that. All right.
Okay.
Leon,
in the chat, in the chat for everybody, I just put the Zero Trust document, the NIST 800-207. So you can go ahead and read it for yourself. Don't go by my definition.
Hey, and look up the executive order. They put that final draft out yesterday. It looks just like this. And then also, no. To compare it. And then look at the DOD NIST. None of these documents are more than 30 pages long, y'all. They're very short.
No, that NIST document I just gave it is 59 pages.
How much is it? Yeah, okay, whatever. That's nothing. Okay, it's 60 pages. The DOD one is what? 60?
I don't know.
It's no more than 60. It's less than that.
I don't even care about the DOD.
NIST has like 8 pillars. CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Services Agency, they have a Zero Trust too, which is kind of based on NIST, but they have 5 pillars. NIST has what, 7 or 8? DOD has 4 or 5, but they're all the same. That's what I'm saying. Read all 3 documents or scan through it, and you'll see they're saying the same thing.
I just gave them the NIST. They don't need to look at anything else.
GSA, hey guys, GSA, which is who your government is going to follow, they're going to come up with their own standard, which is going to look very similar to NIST. It's just look at these different things. It's fine. NIST should be the only one they have. I don't know why. It is not.
Leon, I'm gonna message you on LinkedIn. Can we schedule a phone call?
Okay, y'all. Sorry, this is gone.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. If that was for me, Dante, yeah, absolutely message me on LinkedIn. Let's connect.
Let me send you mine too. So if y'all need to get in contact with me and you actually want to go through this fun next month, I can get you on board for that. And then I'll make sure I'll set out, I'll send everybody an invite so you can get in the group on LinkedIn. There you go. So you can have that and you can get on the group on LinkedIn. And we have these types of discussions across the internet just to make people mad. And unlike what Leon was saying,
it's so much easier to have
I shaved my head. Okay. There's a difference between a shaved head and your hair falling out from the nervousness of the day.
Okay, JP, I shaved my head too. I shaved my head starting at 20 years old. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Again,
oh my God. I started shaving my head at about 25, y'all.
Yeah, I like my hair.
I used to have a mohawk. Because I like my hair felt on the side of my head.
I like your hair too, Dante. Makes me a little jelly that I don't have hair like that.
I love it. Okay, yeah, so you won't go bald unless it's by choice, But what I will say, the compensation really makes up for a lot of things. The lifestyle is really chef's kiss. And like they'll send you to things, I've been to the Capitol Grill for the first time on some demo vendor's dime because for whatever reason, they give us fancy things sometimes.
Wait a minute, hold on, Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
Cut the
hold on.
Cut the recording off before we start telling them the good stuff.
Oh shoot, wait, you're right. Hold on a second. Let me Let me get back on it. God dang it.
So
I am-
we're gonna tell you the real thing about cybersecurity.
I hope they let me stop it.
Please stop it, because I'm about to drop. I'm
I
about
had
to take knowledge from my brother. And for everybody that's on here that's worked under 5 years in security. Man, you gotta cut this button off. I still see it say recording. And if
I
you
don't.
look,
Hey, can you turn it off? Because I'm not at my thing. Can you
oh, hold on. Let me see if I can. What do I have to do to turn it off?
turn it off?
How do I turn it off? Oh, wait a minute. Nope. It's telling me to record. Hold on. How do I turn it off, Tiffany?
Oh, it won't let you turn it off?
I don't know where to go to turn it off.
Hold on a second. Sorry, guys. It's only 9 of us on here because I'm not at the
God dang it. Hold on. Because it's asking me, do I want to record on the computer?
I could have sworn I made my.
I don't want to. I've already stopped video. Security.
The record, like I see the record button.
Yeah. I tried to push that. It didn't stop. Hold on. Let me go on the. All right. Well, you know what? I can edit it. I can edit it on the back end, I think. I think I can edit it on the back end. We'll edit it.
Just edit it out.
Yeah, I'll edit it out. Let me tell you guys, okay? One of the nice things about being in cybersecurity, when you know your stuff, you get invited to go to places, okay? And when you go to these places and you learn, you know, what it is that you're doing, you know the right people to talk to, your life is just so much better. Tiffany, tell them about the steak lunches and the steak dinners the vendors invite you to.
Okay, I think the meeting is over. We're down to less than 10 people. Hey, JP, this was a great meeting. We had 30 people at the top.
Shoot, we had 60. We had 60 last month.
Oh, wow, that's great. Well, we had.
Uh-oh. Tiffany left. All right, I'm gonna shut it down. Oh, never mind. She back.
Yeah, hello?
Yeah. I thought you had dropped off.
Next meeting.